But let's get into this. I'm gonna let some of this play. Some of this play through. This is a 2-hour video, and we're here for the whole thing. We're definitely gonna be here for the whole thing. So sometimes I'll just make it full screen for you guys and take myself out of it, and we'll watch it for a little bit. But we'll definitely interject when we need to. If you guys have comments, concerns, issues in the chat, let me know what you guys want to talk about. We can always pause and chop it up and that kind of stuff. So links in the description if you want to support the channel. And I didn't really do an opening, but we'll use that as the opening. Let's get into this. Timcast IRL featuring Dan Bongino. Let's see what they're talking about. Timmy boy, what are we doing, Timmy boy?
Okay, this morning, I wake up. Of course, we had the news, and I decide I'm going to do a segment about the Epstein conspiracy being confirmed. Yeah, because the Wall Street Journal reported that Bill Gates was being blackmailed by Epstein to try and get money out of him, which is but a keyhole into the whole Epstein conspiracy, but basically confirms what we all believed is likely true. Epstein was blackmailing powerful individuals and trying to control them through threatening to leak information on their, let's just call it, adult private affairs. Now, the Wall Street Journal says it appears to be this way, but they then outright say their sources say the intention of this communication was to blackmail Bill Gates. I'll take it. It may be just a single grain of sand that in the evidentiary file of Epstein was doing this, but now we know, at least in this one instance, he was. I think it's fair to say in all likelihood, this is how he was doing everything he was doing. The question then becomes, is he the mastermind or is he the messenger? So we're going to talk about that. Boy, do we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
I don't think he's the mastermind
Trump's 2025 agenda has a lot of people really excited.
I really thought before it was like him and a cabal of rich people all working together to kind of make this pedo ring thing kind of work. But more and more, I think it's probably a government-run thing. Either Israeli, our government, maybe both. Definitely interesting stuff. But I'm going to let this play for a couple minutes. I will be right back. I am listening. I'll be right back, folks.
But before we get into all that, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. Yo, check it out. I got a bag of Appalachian Nights right here. We got this one in. And this is our coffee company. If you want to push back against woke corporations and support one of our companies, support a company that doesn't hate you, go to castbrew.com, buy your coffee from us. I recommend Appalachian Nights or Rise with Roberto Jr. Our Roberto Jr. Light Roast is just too insanely popular. You can also join the Cast Brew Coffee Club and get 3 different bags every single month and support companies that don't hate you. We really do appreciate it. I got to be honest, I brewed up some Appalachian Nights this morning. It was so good, I just slammed the coffee. Normally, I drink it very slowly, but it's just, man, is it good stuff. So I really do appreciate all your support. Don't forget to head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to watch our members-only uncensored shows. Now, we're hanging out with Dan Bongino today, who's got to leave right on the mark at the end of the show. So we did a pre-show with him, which will be available right when we wrap this up. We'll upload it so you can watch that uncensored show. We talked a lot about a lot of really cool stuff. So smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you really do like it and think we make a difference. And as I already mentioned, joining us tonight, it is an honor and a privilege. We have Dan Bongino.
Man, you don't miss that pre-show. Although I have to apologize. Yeah, it was good, but there were quite a few F-bombs, so I'm really sorry to the parents with kids at home, but that was a lot of fun.
That was good.
Got the energy going, man. You got me like flying right into this here.
Yeah, it was great. We talked about war, elections, but we wanted to save some of the best stuff for going live. So I think most people know who you are, but do you want to just provide a simple introduction?
Yeah, so I was a cop, and then I was a Secret Service agent for a little while. I'm going to sum this up in like 10. And then I got tired of all those things. I said, I want to go do something. I tried to get in medical school. It didn't work. Ran for office. Almost won, but didn't win. Horseshoes and hand grenades. Did a hit on Fox. Wound up with a radio show and a podcast, and then just flew up to meet the great Tim Pool today. There we go.
Appreciate it.
There's nothing I hate more than long intros. You ever go to give a speech and they have this, here's Tim Pool, and they're reading for like 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, wrap it up. Wrap it up. I send them one sentence. Here to speak is Dan Bongino. He's a really nice guy, and he's got something to say. Thank you. So there you go.
Perfect.
This is summing it up.
How you doing, everyone? I am Phil Labonte, the lead singer from the heavy metal band All That Remains, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary, and I'm here with my friend again,
Crossland.
Yes! Look who's back.
Yo, welcome back, baby. Thanks for having me,
How
Phil.
long was it? Was it 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think so, man. And I'll be here for a couple days, and then I'm going to be out for a few more. I'm going to go take a little short rest and go see Tool on this coming week. I'm very excited.
They
I like
still
that
performing?
band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah.
They got some. We play Tool a lot during my Maynard, and then some of their stuff is epic. That one song just blows me away though every time. Oh,
Sober?
Yeah, a lot of them.
H?
no,
Schism.
No, damn it! I'm like,
See, the thing is, with a band like Tool, they have so many great songs to start
gonna
listing them
drive me
off.
nuts.
You're just gonna miss. You're
Dude,
just gonna miss.
H is so hot,
They're
man.
great.
My roommate in college would get drunk and punch the
we
walls
cannot
to those
continue
guys.
this show.
And then he had 4 kids. He was like getting ready to become a father, and you could just see it, him going through it.
Right on.
Yeah, well-
Welcome back, Ian.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. And that Appalachian Nights is delicious, by the way.
46-2.
Such a good song.
Oh, dude, epic.
Yes,
that
yes.
song, man, that blows me away.
I would like to
every
cover
time.
that sometime. That's a really hot song.
Now, I know it's not Tool, but A Perfect Circle, Judith, I think is one of
Yes.
the greatest songs ever written.
Yes.
The lyrics, the story, the guitar on that, it's just, man, Maynard, legend.
I love tunes. I'm a big music guy. I was into like country and stuff, but Tool blows it out. You know who was like an underrated band too? Am I fucking your show up already, man?
No, go for it.
We had all this stuff to talk about. We'll get to Epstein there, folks. But System of a Down, man.
Yeah.
Was so like those guys, man, they
Agreed.
tore it up.
Toxicity.
Man. Oh,
I was just listening to that a couple days ago, man. That beat, it's like that bass and that drum is like.
oh man, it's so badass. I wish I could sing, man, but I can't. I just went to the Morgan Wallen concert, the last one before his voice got all busted up. I was so wrecked. I had like 5 White Claws. It was the only, like, I don't drink White Claw, but it was the only alcoholic beverage where there was no line, and they wouldn't let you go in with like 5 or 6 at a time. So I had to keep going out. So I was drinking these like tall boy White Claws, man, totally obliterated. Complete blast. And like people are coming up to me like, and it's loud. I can't hear anything because I'm half deaf anyway from my time in the Secret Service with that thing jamming in my ear. And people are like, hey, bro, your show, we love your show. I'm like, I'm just listening to tunes, man. But whatever you're saying, I really appreciate it. I had a total blast, man. Music's my thing, man.
I know it hasn't really started yet, or they haven't gotten into anything, but you can already tell Dan Bongino is relaxed, and I don't know. I just get a different vibe from him. That's what I got from the clip that I seen of this, which is why I wanted to check it out. A whole different relaxed vibe from Dan. So I'm hoping we get some more insight into what he actually thinks that he's not willing to put out on his show, like as official, official stuff from his show that they can clip. Not that he couches what he says on his show or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But maybe in a more relaxed, unscripted setting, we'll get to hear a little bit more in depth.
Right on. We got Serge hanging out too.
Yeah, I am hanging out. I'm wearing my hat that said Epstein didn't Epstein himself just for the occasion. So yeah, let's get started. I want to talk
Here
about
we
this.
go. So this is stories. This is nuts. This is it from the Wall Street Journal. Take a look at this picture. We got Epstein and Bill Gates right there. Jeffrey Epstein appeared to threaten Bill Gates over Microsoft co-founder's affair with Russian bridge player. It is the lightest, smallest grain of sand, effectively confirming. I believe confirming the conspiracy theory that Epstein was blackmailing powerful individuals, but they outright say it in here. They say in 2017, Epstein emailed Gates and asked him to be reimbursed for the cost of a coding course for this young woman, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, the issue here is, why would Epstein contact Bill Gates about a young woman he had an affair with in secret, except to say, I know you had the affair. I want the money. I know you had the affair. They even go on to say the intention was to blackmail Bill Gates in this. So let me just read this. Jeffrey Epstein discovered that Bill Gates had an affair with a Russian bridge player and later appeared to use his knowledge to threaten one of the world's richest men, according to people familiar with the matter. The Microsoft co-founder met the woman around 2010 when she was in her 20s. Epstein met her in 2013 and later paid for her to attend software coding school. The email came after the convicted sex offender had struggled and failed to persuade Gates to participate in a multi-billion-dollar charitable fund that Epstein tried to establish with JP Morgan Chase. And that whole story right there sounds like more blackmail. He went to JP Morgan and said, I want to get a bunch of the richest people in the world to invest $100 million into this fund, and then I get paid millions out of it. They say the implication behind the message, according to people who viewed it, was that Epstein could reveal the affair if Gates didn't keep up an association between the two men.
So does that kind of tie into the investigation going on, I think, in the Dominican Republic, where Biden went down there, and at the same time he went down there, they happened to fire the state prosecutor who was looking into Chase Bank and Epstein ties? They are covering this up on all types of levels, all kinds of levels.
And now, is this why Bill Gates divorced his wife?
Yes.
You think so?
Absolutely. I think that when you're dealing with people that are that wealthy and in the positions that the people were in, people that went to Epstein's Island, the positions that they held, these people are not motivated by money. You know, a couple million here, a couple million there. Bill Gates isn't going to notice. But if you threaten to tell his wife that he's been, porking some kid,
that's half his money.
That'll go ahead and get some compliance and obedience out of him. And that's what I think that's the reason why Epstein's dead. And I think that's the reason why the list never came out, the people that have been to Epstein Island, because they're all probably scummy people that had a lot of dirt, or that Epstein had a lot of dirt on them.
Facts.
And that's what kept them, in line. I think that there are very powerful people that have a lot of dirt on people with a lot of money.
I couldn't help but notice in that, I think it was a PBS interview with Bill Gates. You see that one where it's like, well, he's dead. So, I always say, but here's the thing when she says, did you learn a lesson here? And he goes, well, he's dead now. So, you always got to be careful. And he's like holding back a smile. And I'm like, it's kind of weird in later context to hear that Bill Gates was being blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. And you go back to this interview where he was asked if he learned a lesson. And seemingly for no reason, it says he's dead. And so you got to be careful, as if to actually imply, if you screw with me, you know what happens.
Mm-hmm. How did this email come out with this data?
It's a Wall Street Journal reporting.
So someone leaked it to someone.
It sounds like they actually talked to people who know Bill Gates and even got a quote from a spokeswoman for Bill Gates. They say Mr. Gates met with Epstein solely for philanthropic purposes. Having failed repeatedly to draw Mr. Gates beyond these matters, Epstein tried unsuccessfully to leverage a past relationship to threaten Mr. Gates. A spokeswoman for Gates confirming Epstein was blackmailing him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bohemian Grove, man.
That is confirmation. That's confirmation right there.
This Epstein thing really it's like a tick burrowing under my skin. I get a call.
Let's go.
Yeah, this is going to get hairy. You guys ready?
Yes.
Right, no more school. Yes. This is like live YouTube. You ready for this? I don't know if you guys
are ready.
I get a call, I don't know, about 4 years ago. It's from, let's say, a friend. Prior line of work thing, right? Guy says, listen. And this guy who calls me is an unimpeachable source. This guy's not like some ham and egg or tomato can guy throwing out some theory about a UFO he saw 72 years ago, whatever. This is like a legit, no-nonsense guy. Guy you trust with your wife, kid, and car, right? He says, I got sent on a temporary assignment once. And on that assignment, I got sent out with on the WCD detail, William Clinton detail. And I knew this guy well. And he says, Dan, I got to share this with someone. He said, I go on a plane and Bill, Clinton gets on the plane with this guy. And it turns out later the guy's Epstein. Now, this guy I'm talking to, this source, he don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. He's just getting on the plane doing the thing, the whole, protection gig, right? He says, I get on the plane and there's these girls who are obviously not of age who are on this plane. They're clearly young. These are not women. These are girls. And he says, I see Clinton disappear into the back he goes, I don't know what happened. I'm not saying what happened because all I know is he disappeared and these girls were back there or whatever. And he said they land at the next stop, wherever it was. And he goes up to the boss on the detail and he says, I ain't getting back on this plane. Because he's a temp. He's not used to like whatever Clinton was up to with the whole shenanigans thing. And this guy's clear as the driven snowman. He don't want to mess around with this. He says, whatever just happened back there, like, I don't want any piece of it. They sent him home. They sent that guy home and he was never temped to that detail again. Now, remember all those Blackberries on that detail. Here's where the story gets super weird. The guy tells me, months or a couple weeks later, when you lose property in the Secret Service, an email goes out. It'll say like, hey, I lost his phone. And it gets logged into NCIC or whatever it is. And everybody knows. So basically, if you find this guy's gun, God forbid, or his phone, it's now effectively stolen property, right? All of a sudden, all the Blackberries on that detail for the agents start showing up like, oh, this guy lost his BlackBerry. Holy shit. Wow, that's so crazy. How'd that happen? I'm like, no. He says, yes. He says it was the craziest thing. Like, oh, look, Agent Joey Bag of Donuts, missing BlackBerry. This is around the whole time, like the Clinton thing's going on. So fast forward this story, right? He tells me that. About a year and a half after that, I'm in a group.
So what do we think on that? What do we think on that type of situation? Do we think that Clinton had a team of Secret Service agents around him that he was paying off to be quiet? Obviously, this guy was put on the detail as a temp, seen some, shenanigans going on and was like, no, I'm not down with this. And they knew what was going on because they were like, yeah, you don't have to be down. We'll send you home. So it sounds like the team that Clinton did have around him was in cahoots, so to speak. All right, Patricia Brothers, thanks for subscribing. We appreciate it.
Green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. Says, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure.
Which people?
That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who is a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset. And they...
All right, that's a little disingenuous there, Dan Bongino. He says, now, which Middle Eastern countries, I don't know. There's only one Middle Eastern country with the intelligence apparatus to pull something like this off, and it's Israel. We all know it's Israel. But although I don't think that Dan is part of the swamp, so to speak, I don't see him as a rhino at all. He's not going to... the word Israel is not going to come out of his mouth, which I kind of find disheartening. That's a little disheartening.
They may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%.
I mean,
Let's get personal with Mr. Gates, though. If this is a story of an adult man having adult relations with an adult female outside of his marriage, is it the biggest deal in the world that needs to be made public?
One of the things I tell
Definitely
young men,
not.
well, and young women as well, but the young men really need to hear this more, I think.
You know what I mean? What I'm interested in is the underage stuff, the creepos, that evidence coming out. Correct. I'm worried that they're doing this with the Bill Gates thing as like red meat, like, oh, look, oh, yeah. And it's like, it's not a criminal issue. It's a personal scandal. It's like, oh, wow, Bill Gates looks bad. But what about the Maxwell stuff? What about the actual client list? I don't think we should be satisfied by what we're hearing, and we should obviously want more.
I think you're totally right. I think that the actual
drip
crimes that they
deflection
committed,
method?
while they are bad, like, I don't think that's the worst thing that's going on. I think the things that they're being blackmailed to cover up is probably worse than the crimes that they committed.
Well,
as bad as they are, you know?
Well, I was going to say, I think the stuff that they're being blackmailed to cover up probably is not as bad as what they're doing in secret. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right. So like we hear a story about, Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre, Giuffre, is that her pronounce her name? And you're like, wow, this guy should be in trouble for that. It's like, what did he do to try and hide that?
Yes.
Because I'm willing to bet a lot of these wealthy guys did something 10 times more evil or supported some real evil stuff.
What does he know that someone else knows that they're threatening to go public about his molesting children?
Let's put it this way. You blackmail someone like Bill Gates into giving up millions of dollars to Epstein, who then uses that money for his trafficking purposes, and that is the bigger problem. These guys who are like, oh no, my affair could be exposed, better fund Epstein. That's the crazy thing here.
Don't you find it weird too that nobody seems to know what Epstein really did?
No one will say.
Right? It's like, oh, they said he was a hedge fund guy. Well, really? What's the fund? Like the Joey Bag of Donuts hedge fund? Like nobody can seem to dig up what this guy. Which brings it back to your point. Like, where, was that what was happening? Was it some circular like, hey, it'd be a shame if this got out. Oh, look, a donation to your little thing, which he then uses to do. I mean, that would be a really sick story, even worse than the original if they were funding this stuff.
Well, I think they were. I think like how else does this guy have $500 million, a private island, and jets? I think the asset thing makes sense because one of the questions that comes up from this is, was he a puppet or was he the mastermind? And I don't think some former high school teacher was the mastermind. I think he was the puppet. Yeah. I don't know for sure. I mean, there's interesting questions around that, but I would lean towards I bet he was a puppet and somebody else got away with it.
Oh yeah, especially if this Middle Eastern asset conversation holds water, that they're basically laundering their money through Epstein and getting him an island and a place to live and funding his operation, and then he's getting Bill Clinton on an airplane and getting him recorded having sex with some girl that's not his wife.
Well, he didn't do that. He met this woman apparently and then found out about the affair and tried using that as leverage against Gates. From this story, it would seem that the picture they're trying to paint is Bill Gates never did the more extreme things people are concerned about. That's why I'm like, is this them placating us? Hey, leak them a little bit so that it seems like Bill Gates' worst thing is that he cheated on his wife?
It's called a limited hangout as opposed to letting it all hang out. A limited hangout is where they only give you when like there's bad things going on, they tell you the truth about a little thing or smaller things. So that way you can say, oh, we've told you all the stuff, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they're doing it to distract you from the actual big thing. A limited hangout versus letting it all hang out.
And then when someone says Bill Gates was on Epstein's plane, they go, oh, we know about that. Yeah. And then Epstein blackmailed over that woman, but she was an adult.
Yeah. I mean, people aren't talking about, or people often forget the connections that Epstein has with politicians, the Clintons, and that's, I think that probably has a significant amount of substance as well. Even if like Bill Clinton wasn't banging little girls on Epstein's islands, it's the connection that he has and the influence. Look at how many people were just dumping money into the Clinton Foundation when Hillary Clinton was running, and then it just like disappeared and evaporated after she lost. No one really questions what was going on with that money and with the Clinton Foundation. I mean, it probably still exists, but the connections between, politicians and Epstein and, I think that's something worth looking into. And it blows my mind that we're not going to get it.
Listen to this story, right? Like what dirtbags these people who run this country and essentially run the globe are. Do you ever say to yourself, like, what scumbags? Like, how do you get on a plane with a girl that looks 14 and a dude disappears in the back and you're like, hey, you got popcorn? Really? Like, right? What kind of sick run this place? We're talking about business titans and nobody ratted this guy out. Nobody was like, hey man, that looks kind of suspicious. What kind of losers are running this place? What did Buckley say? I'd rather have, the first 100 names in the phone book than these people who run the country. Now he's so right.
Yep.
I mean, you look at the guy like in this area we're in now where you get, middle class people with dirt under their fingernails who, leave their work boots outside, right? These people are 1,000 times the man that these losers who are worth fortunes and have all this power, who basically facilitated this guy's BS. I mean, you'd call that out in a minute. You'd be like, wait, calm down with this. Like, what's going on here? And nobody ratted this guy out?
You ever hear of demarchy?
No.
Governance at random. So the idea is Congress would be, you wake up one day and you go to your mailbox and you go, oh, honey, I got Congress duty. I got to go out. I got to go for Congress for 2 months.
Can't be any worse than we got.
It'd be better. So the reason I think that'd be better, at least to some degree, is if it's a limited congressional run where you get duty and you go, and then there's like, they would do the same thing they do with jury and ask you questions and stuff. And then some people could approve or reject, is that after you vote for something, you got to go back home. You don't get lifelong appointments. You don't get access. You don't get a lobbying job. And you're sitting there being like, yo, if I vote for this bank bailout, my neighbors are going to scream in my face. I ain't doing it. I'm only so that's what I
more
when
local
you mentioned the first 100
accountability,
names
I
in
like
the phone
that
book.
idea.
The reason why I think we've got so many problems is that the people we have in government are the people who want power, not the people who want a good country. And I was thinking about this. There's a story about these 6 women runners on the podium. First 3 are advancing to state. 4th place girl loses because she gets bumped by a biological male. So the first place girl, no complaints. Second place is the biological male, cheering and happy. 3rd place female, no complaints. 4th place, who would have been in 3rd place, thumbs down, angry, pouting. Then you get 5th and 6th, not a complaint. You know why? None of these people are willing to stick out their necks for their neighbors or their community. And I think that's one of the biggest problems plaguing our country right now. So you end up with politicians like AOC, who will just lie, cheat, and steal all day, and has a whole bunch of people who aren't smart enough to know that they're being manipulated or cheated or like it, supporting people like her. And then the people who actually are good people, like, imagine if we had Senator Dan Bongino, for instance, someone who clearly cared and actually believed in something. But here's the thing.
I did. But that's why I lost.
And this is the issue,
by
right?
0.5, 1% or whatever.
Yeah, man.
But why would a corrupt system want you in that system? They'd be like, we got to fight tooth and nail to keep this guy out. And so
that is the main reason that I support Trump right there. That is the crux of the issue on why I support Trump. The fact of who doesn't want him to run. The amount of people who do not want Trump to run is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't like any of these people. So one of those, the enemy of your enemy is your friend type of situation. Basically, nobody wants Trump to get in and do what he wants to do, which means we, the people, should probably want him to get in there because it's anti what the current power structure wants, for sure.
People who really do want positive changes either don't think it's worth the fight because it's painful and have the talents to succeed in other places and be effective in other ways. And the only people who are willing to go in government are the people who are not good at anything except they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal for power.
If you're really good, people will support you and you will lead with genuine earned authority through, honor. But if you need to seize the title to be someone's leader, I don't think that really implies that you're going to be very good at your job.
I ran 3
obviously
times.
you're not gonna
You
do a
learn
good
a
job.
lot. I think it's
Shit.
what pissed me off so much and how I fell into kind of radio and podcasting because I got so aggravated about the system. And what Tim's saying is right. I mean, people who have very mercenary, me first kind of power hungry attitudes do very well. I'll never forget being in a Capitol Hill club and I'm running, and it's the first time we're my first Senate race. Nobody took us seriously. We won the primary by some act of God. I ran for Senate the first time out of the chute. We won the Republican primary. It was like the weirdest thing against 10 people, and we, by a sliver. But the second time it was kind of serious. Like people thought, gosh, this guy can, because we wound up raising like a good chunk of money. But I'm in the Capitol Hill Club and I'm with this, I don't know, some group or something like that. And it was a strange thing. They sent out a questionnaire before you meet with them. And the long and short of it, it's about a patent thing, like first to file versus first to invent, like something so esoteric, like only really like a limited number of people care about it. And I had a very specific stance on it because it mattered to me. Like I researched and did the homework on all the issues. And I'll never forget them, like almost kind of implying like, hey, if you say the opposite, and And I thought, you know how many people probably just told him yes for a cheap campaign donation? Because they don't care. Like, no one's even going to notice. And I remember walking out. I'm trying to like virtue signal anyone. I mean, I'm a sinner, but I like anyone else. But I wasn't doing that. Like, because I knew once you sold a little bit of your skin, the pound of flesh was next. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. And I walked out and I was like, nah, man, like, that's my position. I appreciate you meeting with me. I hope you'll reconsider later on. But I'm not doing squat. I'm not selling out anything. And then when I ran.
Yeah, that's the test case right there, Dan. If you would have let them take that little nibble, then the next round of people would have hit you up and been like, well, we heard you did this, so you could do this. And then they push you further and further down the rabbit hole until you're on a plane with Epstein getting filmed.
And, we were in the general, against this guy in this congressional district, Delaney, who's since left. He ran for president and left. They have this Trone cat now. But, I remember everyone telling me, oh, listen, you need to moderate. You need to moderate. It's a D+6 district. No Republican's going to win as a conservative. If you just like don't mention abortion or anything like that. And I got to tell you, man, this is why I think focus groups and politics are full of bullshitters now, because everything they told me was fake. I never changed the damn thing. We lost by 1 point. Everyone else who ran lost by 15. So I don't believe any of that. I was sitting in a group after Mitt Romney lost to Obama down in D.C. This group I was a part of, his Groundswell group, which was good people. And there was this focus group guy in there. And he's like, don't ever mention immigration again. We're never going to win. These guys are so stupid. Trump literally runs on build a wall and wins Pennsylvania for the first time ever. That's why good candidates find a way to overcome with good messaging. If you can stick it on a damn Wheaties box and explain it to someone, you can win. The problem is, like Tim said, you get so many mercenary jerks. They're just terrible messengers. They're just really bad. And that's why I think the Republican Party, without the defense of the media, we just continue to lose.
I think good people.
That's the other problem with the Republican political apparatus. It's filled with so many people just edging to bump up their own personal positions. They're not doing it collectively for a mutual goal. One thing you have to, I guess, respect about the Democrats is even if they don't agree on a lot of issues, they all push forward for their overarching goal of destruction of the country. And Republicans often are too individualistic and just looking out for themselves. And that's why we don't win. That's why we don't win.
Don't want to do bad things to win. Like you were saying, you don't want to compromise your values. How do you win against someone? You're playing a game of Monopoly, I'll put it this way. And the guy you're playing against keeps pulling money out of the bank and sticking it in his pocket. And you're like, hey, you can't do that. And he's like, no, it's fine. How do you win against somebody when they're just like, I'm going to keep doing it no matter what you do?
You're actually playing against the people that are drawing the board on the table. And like, how do you win when someone can just rewrite the complete structure of the board itself? Like Kennedy tried, John Kennedy.
Yeah.
He said out loud, I'm going to change the structure of the board, you guys. And they're like, no, we're going to rewrite the board so that you're dead,
so
John.
You got an establishment,
Facts.
Democrats and Republicans, and they work together. They do not like actual politicians. So what I end up seeing is you get a Trump. And why do people like Trump so much is because he's finally somebody who he's talked a long time about running and saying he wouldn't do it. Remember that interview back in the day with, I think it was Oprah. And he's like, I wouldn't run, but if I did, here are the things that I would focus on. And he finally decides he is going to run. And it feels like, I think to a lot of people, it's the first time someone who should run is actually running. Despite his crass personality, he's a guy who is not supposed to be the politician. The politicians all wear the same suits. They all talk the same way. They all pander to the same in the same ways. Hillary Clinton shows up in whatever state with a fake Southern accent. AOC shows up to a rally and does a fake Puerto Rican Latina thing.
Listen.
Yep. It's fake. And then you get a Trump, and sure, he might be rude, but people kind of feel like we keep asking for people to run for office who are real people who actually care, and they don't want to do it. Why would you? It's torture. Go fighting that machine.
In this environment, the system isn't built right at the moment. With all this technology, that we still have to like mail pieces of paper across the world and hope that it lands in a box and gets counted, and that they're just going to tell us the answer, and we have to believe they're what they tell. Like that's 1870 technology, and why would I want to be part of a system that is harmful?
100% disagree with you.
You're totally
Where you're
wrong.
going.
Totally wrong, Ian. I got to tell you, back in the day, there were much less people, and there were physical ballots that could be checked with tons of people standing around staring. Now it's all code behind the scenes you can't see.
Well, you should be able to see the code.
Right. So
Yeah, but who can understand it?
I'm actually arguing your own point with your own point. We've long talked about how the problem is proprietary, private election systems instead of publicly controlled open source ones.
Correct.
So, but the point I was getting to is not to open up the box of worms on do we trust certain companies. My point is simply the quality of candidate is very, very low.
I
It's
think
been
that
improving.
the people that are leading the world are in the private sector right now. Like politicians do have some sway over the military. Fortunately or unfortunately, okay. But really the people that are in control of Earth are the people that own Google or that Elon Musk, people that are very, very wealthy. They own the oil. You know, they're you don't know their names sometimes. So I think that the real quality leaders aren't drawn to politics. They're drawn to business.
Because business is more so meritocratic. So why is it that Dan Bongino and I both run these shows? I mean, you tried to run for office. Instead, you have one of the biggest shows in the world instead. I actually, fair
Worked
question.
out pretty good.
Let me ask you directly, like, you know, how does it happen that you wanted to get in office, you wanted to make that change? Instead, you're doing something different in terms of making that change.
God loves him.
No, what I mean is, you tried going the route of being a civic
answer,
leader.
though.
Instead, you became an influential person.
Yeah, that happened by accident. I mean,
Johnson, why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson. He's wearing a true classic tee. If it
the whole story of me running for office is just crazy. Like I'm in my 12th year as an agent. I'm 13 years away from retiring, and the thing is, I'm done with the worst part of my career. The president's detail. You think, oh, everybody loves the president's detail. No, they hate it. They love going there because it's distinguished. Like, that's the thing. When you go to the Secret Service, we had like 5,000, 4,000 agents. A limited number of people ever get there. You know, everybody thinks everybody goes to the president's detail. It's actually a small number of guys. So if you get picked, it's like a big deal. So I finished, like I had done lead advances. I left at the top of my game. The rest of your career is pretty much, honestly, you relitigating what you did on the PPD, Presidential Protective Division. You know, reliving your glory days, you know? It's like high school Harry telling that pass you threw in the fourth quarter to win the game. So I'm done. I'm in the Baltimore field office. Life is good. I'm investigating cases, which I love. I was a criminal investigator first, but I just love that stuff. And then, I saw Obama win, and obviously I'm getting ready to transfer to his detail because I'm on Bush's detail. And, it's weird for us, the Secret Service, because literally one night Bush walks out of the bedroom and the next night it's Obama. Like, nothing changes for you. It's the same post. And I had said to my wife about Obama, when I saw him give the speech at John Kerry's nomination, when John Kerry ran, remember he gave that speech, it was electric. I said, man, this guy's going to be big trouble, huge trouble. She remembers it to this day. And I knew the country was in some really deep shit. I knew we were in trouble bad. And I emailed this local Anne Arundel County. I lived in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. I emailed this guy, found him online. His name is Jerry Walker. I said, hey, Jerry, I'm just a guy, man. I saw this speech last night. The country's going to hell. I want to get involved. He emailed me back in like 20 minutes. It was like 11 o'clock at night. He said, there's a local Republican club near you called the Elephant Club. Just show up. And that's how the whole thing started. And then just a couple months later, I looked at my wife and I'd been bothering her. I said, I got to leave. I got to get out of here. Maybe 6 months later, I said, I got to go do something. I got to do something bigger than this, man. I can't just watch the country go to shit. I mean, I'm getting a paycheck. Government's bills are always cleared for me. Everyone else is getting, they're still dealing with the recession. And I felt like, man, this ain't right. Like I'm not like a citizen grifter here. Like, I know my job's important, keeping this cat alive in the White House, but I can't do this, man. So I said, I think I want to run for office. My wife thought I was nuts, man. She thought I was totally bananas. But to her credit, she's always willing to take a chance, man. She's like, all right, you know what? You want to run? We were at a Cinco de Mayo party in a cul-de-sac. I'm probably like 45 tequilas to the wind at that point. Who knows? And she looked at me and goes, you really going to want to do this, right? I said, yeah. She said, all right, do it. I resigned. I gave him 2 weeks notice and I left and I jumped in the U.S. Senate race. Everybody laughed. They said, look at this idiot. Who's this moron? You know, I had nothing, no money. I had
crazy.
5 emails a guy had given me for local reporters. You know, we won that primary. We raised $1.2 million.
Wow.
We won that primary.
There's still stickers with your name on it out here.
Yeah, that race was serious. That was the next one. The Senate race, we got annihilated. It was a 3-person race. We got crushed. The independent actually spent more money than all of us. He spent $7 million. He finished third. I finished second. Cardin won. But then we ran for re-election here, and that race was serious, man. A lot of people were like, dude, this guy's not screwing around, man. Like, we would show up at the Brunswick Parade. The Brunswick Parade, we had these yellow shirts. The pictures are still on my Instagram. We'd show up with 150 people for a congressional race, walking down the street in yellow T-shirts, and everyone was like, who the hell is this guy, man?
And for people who don't know, Brunswick is not very big.
No, it's not big at all. You look at the pictures, these thin streets, and it's hills all over. We came down, there's a picture of a yellow Prowler. This volunteer might have a yellow Prowler, and we had yellow shirts. It looks like an army invading Brunswick. I'm telling you, man, and you know what killed me in that race? We would have won that race. I got a job and a job offer. It was a pretty significant job offer because I was filling in on radio while I was running, which is like a major no-no because, it's equal time stuff. Yeah. How these candidates didn't catch on is like crazy. But we were tearing it up on radio. I get a job offer like a month out from the election. Maybe 2 months, whatever. About 2 months out. And I'm like, shit, what do? I can't drop out. And I'm like, we didn't think we were going to win. And I'm like, I made a commitment. I made a promise. But for like a week, I thought this thing through because it was like life-changing for me what was going to happen. And I did the right thing. I turned it down. But I swear in that week, if we just would have knocked on a few more doors, we would have won that race, man. I mean, it was devastating on election night. It was devastating. We won on election night.
Were the votes
Yeah, that's probably worse, is to be that close and then still lose. You work that hard, you get so close, and you lose by such a narrow margin. You're like, that one Saturday I went home early, or, that one weekend I was like, let's just take the weekend. You look back and be like, that's the weekend we would have got the extra votes we needed. So, yeah, that's probably the hardest part of the whole thing for sure.
tallied on a machine with proprietary software code?
I don't know, man. But that Frederick City thing I told you about still freaks me out. That all those people voted who claimed they weren't citizens. I was like,
what was it about Obama that freaked you out on that first speech you heard?
listen, man, it was kind of old school collectivism repackaged with a bow under the guise of like faux bravado citizenry. Like, oh, look at me. I'm so pro-America. I got this success story. What's your success story again? You're a community organizer. You're just to be clear, like that. So but you get how it was packaged in liberty-oriented, capitalism-based ideas, like, oh my gosh, I overcame all. I'm sorry, what did you overcome again? You were a community organizer.
Yeah, they definitely did package and sell Obama to the American people. He was handpicked to be president. I think they'd been grooming him to become president for a while. I don't know if you guys have seen that one Judge Joe Brown interview where he just lays out the business on how shady the Obama family is. Apparently Obama's either mom or grandma was Bush Sr.'s like go-to liaison between Bush and some army force or guerrilla force or whatever. He was Obama's mom or grandma was working with Bush and the CIA to smuggle money and do all kinds of crazy shit. So yeah, they act like Obama was pulled off of the heap of irrelevance when he had been groomed the whole time to do what he was supposed to do.
So like, what exactly did you do? But I saw the guy. I'll never forget where I was. I'm in the Shelbourne Hotel in Manhattan because I'm getting ready as a counter surveillance agent for the Republican National Convention, which was in New York, which was after that. So I'm watching him give this speech on TV. And I'm thinking of every corrupt destructive Marxist-based politician in human history, what have they had the gift of more than anything? It's the gift of the ability to expel carbon dioxide, man, and talk and convince people that this old bullshit idea they were packaging is new again. And I heard it. I heard it new again. I heard old school Marxist claptrap garbage packaged in a way that even I'm listening going, damn, that's good.
Let's talk about this story here from the Daily Signal. Exclusive leaked policy exposes Fox News' stance on woke ideology. So, of course, the big story, Tucker Carlson gets ousted. Several reports have said he got the boot because it was part of the Dominion settlement. But, Dan, you had a show there, a huge show. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any insights into this, but I'll just say outright, this is like a big exclusive where apparently now people are coming up from Fox News saying inside the company, it is woke. It is very lefty. I think the obvious thing is you're in New York City. You got New York City laws. Yeah. These laws are pretty broad. And I'm going to get into the heaviness of these laws, but I'm curious, your experience at Fox News, you go from politics, then you're into, radio, now your personality, now you've got a show on Fox News. Did you see any of this woke stuff there?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was real. Now, here's the thing. I didn't work in Fox in New York. I had my own studio in Florida. And I got to tell you, Fox never did me wrong. Like, we would fight about a lot of stuff. And, I said I was talking to Megyn Kelly about this last week. But it wasn't anything unusual you wouldn't see on his show. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, don't cover that topic. Or I said often, like, they never told me what to talk about because I just would have talked about it anyway. I mean, there's a reason... But I didn't use a prompter on a lot of my segments. Some of them we did, but that doesn't happen at Fox. Like almost nobody. I think there's one host. I don't think Cavuto uses a prompter, but it's for different reasons. But almost nobody goes without a prompter. Matter of fact, I had Jesse on as a guest one day in New York. Rarely I would do my show from New York, like once or twice a quarter or something. And Jesse came in and I did this big like rant, and he's looking at a prompter and it just says like, Dan ad-lib. And I go on. And he's like, dude, you did that out of your head? And he's like, well, how'd you hit the mark and stuff? I said, I'm used to it with talk radio. Like we did our thing. So no one ever told me what to say because I wouldn't have listened anyway. But here's the thing. Like Tim brings up a point because it's hard. I know it's easy to, pile on. And if anybody has a reason to be angry with everything going on, it's me. I was there. I'm pissed about what happened. I am. I would, the relationship there, I put a lot of time into. But he's not wrong. I mean, forget this stuff for a second. I'll get to that. I'm not trying to avoid it, but I'll give you a perfect example. The vaccine thing. They did everything they can with me to make it easy for people to not get canned with the mandate. But they were in New York. Like they had they would have shut the building down. I lived that. They did everything they could to make sure nobody got canned. Like, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to do remote stuff. All right, would I like them to like punch him in the face in New York and say, this is stupid, we're not doing it? Yeah, but with this is different. I mean, this is kind of like, I read the story. Looks like they really went overboard with this. You got to remember, you got a lot of serious conservatives there. How are they going to feel? Say you're a female conservative host there, which they have a few. You're popping in a bathroom and a guy walks in? How's that going to go down there? Have they thought this through?
Has Fox News considered maybe leaving New York?
They should. I mean, listen, after the Tucker thing, they've got bigger problems. I mean, I'm not sure. A lot of people linked their book. This is a great. I mean, can I read something to you? It's quick, I promise. I hate when people read stuff. But someone gave this up to Breitbart, and this kind of explains it all. They said, because this is kind of accurate. They're talking about why me and Tucker weren't re-signed. And some source told them, this is from a Matt Boyle piece, that Bongino and Carlson, one source said, were considered the two most likely to say, fuck you to management. It's right here. A network insider said, adding that Bongino gave 0 fucks and Tucker gave even less fucks. So that's kind of true. That's why I'm not furious at them because I wasn't the easiest guy to work with. I'm not going to mess.
How did it end? You were just doing it, and then they fired you?
No. So the show was number one. I mean, demo and overall. You can't get higher number one. Like we were rocking it, man. We were pulling in killer numbers. Even we were at 10 and at 9 at both spots, and they wanted to re-sign for about 6 months. And I don't have an agent. I do my own deals always. I don't need it. I like my own stuff. So I was the one doing all the negotiating. There was never a question they wanted to show ever. And then about 2 weeks out, but at the end of the contract was, I think, April 30th or whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head. But about 2 weeks out, I noticed like the tone changed completely. And I don't know what happened. I at that point, I wanted to re-up for a year. And I said, let's just punt this down the road and let's re-up for a year. And then, I don't know, it just seemed like they weren't interested. But, the people I was dealing with there, they were genuine with me. Like, they never bullshitted me at all. No one ever said to me something that didn't happen. So I can't sit here and say, like, again, it's easy for me to pile on. And I have no reason. I don't work there. I'm probably never going to work there again. I may never do a hit again on Fox. But I'm not going to tell anybody fairy tales that aren't true, because that's like short run clickbait stuff. But in the long run, it dings your credibility. Now, the Tucker story.
That's definitely one thing I do respect about Dan is he didn't come out. He could have scored a lot of conservative points, so to speak, if he would have came out and bashed Fox a little bit, throwing him under the bus, maybe picked out a couple people or a couple incidents that happened, spread some dirt. Might have get him some stories, some clickbait, some notoriety. Might have helped him out a little bit. But he did the right thing. He didn't throw him under the bus. He just told, his side of the story with how it actually happened, how it actually went down. So you got to respect him for that.
It's got some angles to it, So I don't know if something happened last minute that post-Dominion where they were like, let's just clean house and get rid of these two. I don't know that, but things did change the last 2 weeks.
So here's the interesting thing about this leaked policy exposing Fox News' stance on woke ideology. They say things that I think are kind of obvious, considering Fox is based in New York City, that your gender identity is protected, whether or not it conforms. This is New York City and state law, I'm pretty sure. And I've long talked about how the laws in New York City open the door for a major problem if anyone actually chooses to put it to the test. So in the Daily Signal article, they actually link to the New York City Commission on Human Rights definitions. They say gender expression is the representation of gender as expressed through one's name, pronouns, clothing, hairstyle, behavior, voice, or similar characteristics. Gender expression may or may not conform to gender stereotypes, norms, and expectations in a given culture or historical period. It actually says that, meaning if you put on a safari costume from the 1800s and call yourself the Colonel with a fake beard, that is quite literally what they're referring to. Historical period? You can dress up like a pirate. They wouldn't put historical period as protected unless they expected people to dress up like colonial era pirates.
You cannot run a conservative company out of New York City. You cannot. There is no way. You realize this was the intention of the left hijacking corporate America too, right? HRC and the DEI, that were like,
yes.
I call it the DIE stuff.
The ESG stuff.
Because they want you to violate your own core tenet principles, which does what? It obviously alienates you from the core audience that funds you. By the way, my producer Guy downstairs watching the chat.
What up, Guy?
He says, the chat's convinced you're on drugs. They're not used to the energy. I am not on any professional narcotics.
He didn't even have any of our coffee.
I didn't even have any of the coffee. This is my natural state of being.
Here's what I want to say about the law in New York City, though, because I think we need some strong people at Fox News. If there's anywhere that would be willing to test the limits of these laws, it's someone who works at Fox News, who understands this is going too far. If you work at Fox News, you can put on a full wolf fursuit, tell your boss your name is Vociferon, Herald of the Winter Mists, and your pronouns are Lord Vociferon and Lord Vociferons. And if they don't use it, they're in violation of the law. Now, as I've mentioned before, I've talked to lawyers about this in New York who said you'll be laughed out of the courtroom. Why would the law say historical period? Fine. Show up to Fox as an on-air contributor dressed like a pirate with an eye patch and go, "Yar, thanks for having me on the air, matey." And if they have a problem with it and tell you can't go on, to say, if you don't let me go on, I will file a complaint with the Commission on Human Rights in New York City for violation of their human rights law. Let's see how quickly Fox News bends over backwards. Here's what I want to see. Will Fox News at that point say, we cannot allow people to show up dressed like pirates?
It's not which Kentucky cooler will you try. It's
Well, according to state law,
I mean, it says anything.
Caveman.
You could dress up like
wanna
with
do caveman.
a Roman in a toga, and then go on the air. If they bar you from going on the air, they're in violation of the law. Now, go before a judge and say, Your Honor, this is how I express my gender as someone who's non-binary, and it says in the law, historical period is explicitly protected. No judge is going to be able to laugh you out. There's no other interpretation of that.
It all depends on the judge.
Sure, but if the law itself says historical period. Now, look, when I first read this law back in 2019, I said, what would happen? I called a bunch of human rights lawyers in New York and said, what would happen if I went in dressed like a wolf or something and said I was vociferon? They said, they'd still fire you, kick you out. And when you go to a judge, they'll say, we know what the intent of the law is, and this is not it. And they will laugh you out of the courtroom. And I said, if a judge has the right to laugh at me for the way I dress, why not a man dressed like a woman? And they're like, well, I mean, the purpose of the law and the intent is, and I was like, okay, so there could be a judge who just says no. This is different. This law explicitly says historical period. That means if you go before a judge dressed like a pirate and say it says historical period,
My bad, I had it muted. What is the reason that they would have it include historical period? Was the person writing this law wearing a fucking George Washington wig at the time? Going, you know, people might not allow me to wear this wig, and I like it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
this makes me feel the most comfortable and confident in my gender. Why can't I dress up like a busty female pirate from the 1700s with an eye patch and a fake peg leg?
Like Keira Knightley from Pirates.
Exactly, absolutely.
Or a nudist.
And if the judge says,
Right.
When's that
I
gonna happen?
reject this historical period clothing, which clearly falls in line, then the law is basically meaningless. But I'm curious, because I'll tell you this, if it were me and I worked at Fox News and this story came out, I would show up the next day dressed like a pirate. And I would get like legit Hollywood production quality pirate costume. And I'd be like, I am going on the air dressed like a pirate, talking like this, yar, welcome to the news program. And if they had a problem with it, it's a violation of the law.
I would enjoy
Is
a
Fox News
Timcast
at that
pirate
point going,
segment.
they're going to be presented with one of two scenarios. Destroy your audience, sacrifice your audience for the local New York City laws, or relocate.
You mentioned the New York City laws, and I think there's merit to that, but I do think that the ESG considerations from the investors and stuff, I think that has a significant amount of pressure put on them as well. So I think that the combination of the two is probably the most likely.
But that part of the story puzzled me the most. That apparently they are pitching their high HRC scores like a net positive.
Yeah.
As
Because
a
of the
conservative
investors.
network, that's like that's a stain on your network from that group.
But there's big investors that are like BlackRock and stuff like that. These investment firms and stuff like that have a significant effect on the direction of the corporation, because it opens opportunities if you play by their rules. So it may affect your bottom line, and you may lose, like Fox may lose viewers because of the woke stuff coming out. But in like BlackRock and stuff like that say
but I wonder
promise
with them-
opportunities in the future.
See, Fox's business model though is not what everybody thinks it is. Most of their money actually comes from carriage fees. Now, advertising is obviously a good chunk of it too, and they don't want to lose it. But the hard reality is, even though they were losing some money on Tucker's show due to boycotts and other stuff, Fox News was still generating a good chunk of change. I mean, they were not in any danger of going bankrupt or anything like that.
What are carriage fees?
Carriage fees are fees paid to a cable channel to be carried on like, say, Verizon, these cable packages. So because nobody will get cable without Fox, very few people, they get paid a certain amount of money for each user. So the problem Fox is going to have that's bigger than boycotts, ad boycotts, are cord cutters. Because if you're getting a carriage fee of whatever, say $1 a person, and there's 100 million people with cable, you got 100 million in the can before you sold a freaking ad. The problem is the cord cutting is speeding up. That's why when I decided I was going to do interviews after leaving Fox, I've only done 2, and they've both been new media. You guys and Megyn Kelly, because I am an avid supporter of new media. As this cord cutting picks up, shows like this, You have to understand, like, this is going to be a dumb box in the future, okay? They call it a smartphone. It's really a dumb box. It's going to be a transmission vehicle. People are going to want to watch Tim Pool. Tim Pool's going to be your 8 o'clock guy, whatever. Tim Pool's your, whether you watch it on this, an iPad, a computer, or a monitor with smart TVs is going to be totally irrelevant. The cable box is done. We just bought a house, and the guy comes over we needed a cable, traditional cable, because I still watch cable, Newsmax and Fox and stuff. The guy goes, cable box. He goes, no, we don't even have those. You got to go pick one up yourself. Well, what do you mean? You're a cable guy. He goes, no, we don't do that. He goes, everybody streams now. The guy says he hasn't hooked up a cable box in days. I said, really? We're the only ones. I felt like I was from the Flintstones. So Fox makes a lot of money from that. But you're not wrong. Like, there is pressure from places like BlackRock that can buy up a lot and can buy up your stock. Mm-hmm. But if your brand and your value added, right, is, hey, we're going to be the conservative channel, then I'm sorry, but you got to do conservative stuff. I mean, their opinion part is conservative.
They got to leave New York.
Who owns it? Who owns Fox? I'm looking. It's 39% Murdoch. It's only 39% though. So who owns the other 50?
Well, it's publicly traded.
Someone super chatted and said, "What if the historical period was pre-Civil War Southern Belle?" So if you work at Fox News, show up and say you identify as your gender is non-binary antebellum, and wear old pre-Civil War.
You'd be thrown out of there so fast.
They can't do that. This is the problem. Look, if they want to create these laws, all it takes is someone with the willingness to be like, let's see if we'll play a game of chicken. Is Fox News. Look, Fox News is perfect for this because the people who work at MSNBC like what MSNBC does. The people who work at Fox clearly oppose, not all of them, but a lot of them, the ideology. Is Fox going to say, we will lose our audience and go out of business, or will we move? So it's like the pressure is on, man. If you work there, you can make the difference.
But I wonder, have they made a commitment ever since Tucker and I, departed from the network? Have they made a commitment to kind of become like a right of center network rather than what they were, thinking that that's where the money is? Because you got to remember, everyone who's tried that has failed. I could go through a list of probably 4 or 5 online outlets. It started as explicitly right, conservative right-leaning, who decided to play down IJ. Remember IJ Review was hot, man, when it started? Mm-hmm. They were doing these like nugget videos and Vine-like videos. They were hot. They're still around. Whether they're profitable, I don't know, but they were blowing up. They were doing right-leaning stuff. And then someone, I don't know who, pitched them this idea of, hey, let's play it down the middle. The problem with playing it down the middle is you just piss off both sides. And you got to understand, like, the politics now are very Manichaean. They're just, this is it. Like, the next fight is the end and the next election is the end. Whether that's true or not, I hope it isn't. Unfortunately, people feel that way.
It's not the middle. It's establishment. If you are someone like Jimmy Dore, who's very clearly a leftist, but if you're honest about the news.
Yeah, I love Jimmy Dore.
Exactly.
I played a clip of him. That's funny on my podcast today. It's hilarious.
Jimmy Dore will argue socialist economic points. And you'll be like, well, Jimmy, I think you're clearly wrong about that. And then you'll come to the issue of Epstein or Clinton or the banks, and you'll completely agree because he's honest.
Jimmy doesn't buy into the religion either.
Right.
Like the whole religion part, the ideology that goes along with it. It's like Jimmy's straight up about like the actual material conditions, which is more close to like original Marxism with what is it?
Class-based or?
Yeah, materialism. I forget the phrase that he used, but he was really focused on materialism. And Jimmy Dore does that. He doesn't get into the what basically boils down to like the almost the theology of the left, the trans stuff and the LGBT stuff and the basically the making it like a religious.
You know what I think though the Fox problem is going to be too. The problem they're going to have is conservatives, right? I mean, I've been embedded in this movement a long time, over a decade of my life. Conservatives don't like to get toyed with. Believe me, I see it. Like conservatives will call out conservatives over nothing.
Correct.
Liberals don't have that problem. Do you realize like how dumb liberals are? I'm sorry, they're freaking imbeciles. You can lie to a liberal for 5 years about a pee-pee hoax, right? It's clearly bullshit. Like there was no...
All of it.
5 years, Tim, 5 years. Imagine wasting. So just Rachel Maddow probably does 190 shows a year before her new contract. Now she only works 1 day a week. So figure 190. She did 190 shows a year for almost 5 years on a story that is bullshit. how are you watching this? Like, what the? I just wasted hundreds of hours of my life. If you pulled that as a conservative, and it happens now.
It's a cult.
It's a freaking cult. It happened to me today. I did this interview with, like I said, Megyn Kelly on Friday. And this lady, stuff drives me crazy on Twitter. Like, I'll respond to randos over nothing because I just get pissed off and I got a really like shit attitude. I just do. Some like random ladies like, I heard Dan Bongino and Megyn Kelly calling Ron DeSantis a backbencher. I'm done with these two. And they said Trump's tweets aren't a problem. I'm like, I answered her back. I'm like, did you even watch the show? Because I went back and watched the clip. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
I said I supported Trump and we've got a great bench, including Ron DeSantis. That's not calling him a backbencher, you freaking idiot. And it's like our people call our people out over stuff that didn't even happen. And we're so annoyed, like, you're not principled. And yet the left, you can stick it to them, lie to them, make up innumerable stories, and they will never give up. They'll tune in to Rachel Maddow tomorrow. Her podcast kicks ass.
Yep.
I follow the numbers like you do. If you got caught lying about a major thing, I've got the skinny on Governor Andrew Cuomo. It's just coming down. It's explosive story. And for 5 years, and it turns out to be BS. No one watched Tim Pool again. But that's not what we do. It makes us better people. And I'm proud to be on the true side of the movement. And I agree with you. It's more anti-establishment than conservative or left. I totally get that. I'm vibing with you on that. But if you did the stuff lefties pull on their audience, you'd be done, man. Finished.
Let's talk about this story from Axios. Trump's 2025 vision revealed. I already really like it because if you scroll down, it says he's vowing to get rid of Marxist prosecutors.
Yes!
Let's go.
So
I love how this is written as a hit piece too.
Yeah,
and then you read it and you're like, yes, this is awesome. This should be an in-kind donation.
It's the best thing I've heard Trump say ever.
He wants to build the wall. He wants to give the president the authority to hire and fire federal workers. He wants to reward schools that abolish tenure for teachers.
Fantastic.
See, they say, blah, 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 blah. He wants to defund the Justice Department and FBI. He's vowing to get rid of Marxist prosecutors. He wants the DOJ to investigate big pharma and hospital networks. He wants to use the U.S. military to go after drug cartels and street crime. He wants to eliminate an Obama-era rule requiring cities and local governments to address residential segregation. He wants quantum leap to revolutionize the American standard of... His quantum leap to revolutionize the American standard of living includes baby bonuses to create a new baby boom and the design of 10 new freedom cities in the U.S. He wants national concealed carry reciprocity.
Whoa!
I'm like... Axios is really getting me on board with Trump 2024.
I love it. It's written as a hit piece, too. Look at this radical agenda. Meanwhile, every libertarian, conservative, Republican is like, this is freaking awesome. Like,
this is just...
We might have to find that article and do a specific video on that because I'm liking a lot of the stuff in there. If that's Trump's actual 2025 plan, we're with it. We are with it for sure. Shout out to everybody tuning in on Rumble. We got 26 people in there, so I appreciate you guys for stopping in, hanging out. You guys don't do any chatting, which is weird. You should definitely do some chatting. We'd like to hear from you. We want to know what you think. Where are you tuning in from? Yeah, get involved, people. Use the chat. Use the chat.
Straight up good Trump. Well, this is all good Trump.
The idea that he would use the military to go after street crime is a little concerning and all blatantly insane because that's not what the military is for.
I disagree. I think they're lying. I think what we've heard from Trump is that the Insurrection Act should be used against riots. And what Axios is doing is they're reframing it to make it seem like he's talking about a dude robbing a liquor store, which would be, I believe, a violation of Posse Comitatus. Trump was resistant to using the military to even stop the riots. I think what he's saying now is, hey, if this happens again, we'll invoke the Insurrection Act.
Then I won't be too critical since this is a news report about what he said rather than just what he said. But the other thing that struck me was that he wants to give the executive authority the right to hire and fire federal employees, which could be like some psycho could get into office and fire everybody and put all his sycophants in.
That's actually my favorite idea. I mean, if you schedule Fs everyone, I love that.
But also, I clicked the link and it brings you right to his Stop Crime and Restore Safety. And let me just read for you. It says, Our once great cities are now controlled by gangs and cartels, plagued with the mentally ill and drug addicted homeless. Trump will revitalize police departments and reclaim safety, dignity, and peace for law-abiding Americans. He'll deliver record funding to hire and retain police officers, strengthen qualified immunity and other protections for police officers, increase penalties for assault on law enforcement, put violent offenders and career criminals behind bars, and surge federal prosecutors and the National Guard into high crime communities. The only thing that remotely comes close to using the military for street crime is National Guard in high crime communities. That's something we do. We do. The National Guard is deployed in extreme circumstances. If the bulk of what he's saying is revitalizing police departments, for Axios to frame it as he wants to address street crime with military is a lie.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not talking about putting like the National Guard on the south side of Chicago, standing on the street corners with AK-47.
I think he's talking about when they deployed the National Guard to Ferguson when there was widespread rioting. And that was Obama who did that.
I promise they won't have AK-47s.
You have, it wouldn't be an AK. You have in Ferguson protests in the streets, and they deployed the National Guard. When you have certain degrees of high crime, they deploy the National Guard into certain areas. It happens a lot, depending on what that crime is.
Yeah, and usually you got to ask for it. The state's got to ask for it. The federal government...
And it's the state level anyway. It's not something the president does. So with that being said...
Ian, I like that you're skeptical about that.
Yes.
It is good.
I was one of the few... I'm still getting shit about this. When Bukele and then they did these big prison camps for all these gang members... I was one of the few guys, the conservatives are still ripping me for this, but that's fine because I'm not going to change my position. I was one of these guys.
If you own a gun, then just buying concealed carry insurance isn't enough to be prepared.
Saying, you really sure about that? We want to round up like 600,000 people or whatever and throw them in like a prison camp and we're all celebrating. Like, there's no more like pro cop, pro let's crack down, use broken windows policing guy than me. But, we have to be careful as conservatives who support liberty to not like be like liberals, like the current thingers. The current thing, oh, look, there's a guy down there in South America who's cleaning up the streets. Yeah, well, how did he do that? Like, I can clean up the streets too. Like, I'll hire a bunch of special forces guy to like whack 500-600 bad guys. The streets are clean. But like, have we considered the externalities of that? So I'm with you. Like, I'm always skeptical when I hear stuff like that.
And that's good. I agree. But my question is, at what point are you in a war, or are you dealing with a circumstance of market reprisal? So with the issue of cartels, or like in El Salvador, you have extra governmental entities that become governments. At what point are you at war?
Well, listen, it's a fair question to ask. At what point are you at war? The problem is who gets to declare that then, right? Because you're asking a good question, but my question is another question. What happens if you get an Obama then, who says, you know what, we're at a state of war and these conservatives, they're talking about a stolen election. That's all treason and you're all going to go to jail. So I would rather err on the side of extreme caution and have limits on the natural vicissitudes of men's emotions than to have this kind of open season attitude. And I find what people do is they get desperate, and desperation. Here's the thing. I use this analogy on my show a lot, right? You ever see The Walking Dead before everyone woke? I used to love that show. Then it went crazy and a bunch of wokes or whatever. There's that season where they go into prison to get away from the zombies. And I say to my audience all the time, like, who walks in a prison, right, and locks the door in? Because the prison's a bad thing. The answer is people who are afraid of what's on the outside. That's who does that. Oh, look, the zombies on the outside are worse than us taking away our own freedom in a prison. That's what worries me about conservatives specifically. I'm not saying like championing what they did in El Salvador is a horrible. If it works out, great, fine, and civil liberties eventually are respected. But you got to understand, like, this is the kind of stuff that tyrants love. They love to scare you enough because their fear is the coin of the realm, right? That you'll crave this too. Oh man, can't we do that here? And then you get an Obama, Biden, and you're the one in the freaking handcuffs, and you're like, holy shit, did I sign up for this?
And that's what happened with the Patriot Act,
which was horrible.
So the issue that I see is, if principled people are constantly going up against unprincipled people, the unprincipled people will win. People who are willing to, like I was talking about Monopoly, right? If you're playing against someone who's actively cheating and won't stop, but you keep playing anyway, my question is, I like what El Salvador is doing. I don't know I'm not going to say I know every single detail and every single thing they've done, but they went, I think, like 3 months without any murders since they started rounding up the criminal cartels. You've got a bunch of people who are actively in these. So let's reframe this into the United States. The left wants to release people from jail. They're saying, this guy was a shoplifter, let's release him. What does he do? He goes right out right away and shoplifts again. Gets caught and starts laughing, saying, y'all caught me the first time and let me go. It's very difficult to know how we deal with problems like this at scale. When the country is a lot smaller, there's a lot less people, we're very, very, very libertarian. But the bigger issue at play was a shared sense of community where most people shared religious values and there was a lot less people. When militia meant the local men who would take up arms to defend their community. Now you have a place like New York City where people don't even know who lives next door to them. And so what happens is you get a guy on a train threatening people and everybody just puts their head down and ignores it. No one's doing anything. I'll put it this way. The solution to this problem in the most extreme circumstances may be the Insurrection Act, sending out the National Guard or the Army to stop mass unrest in the United States. The real solution is shared moral frameworks, which we don't have. And rebuilding that takes generations. And so it's been destroyed and dismantled over the past couple of generations. It may come to a point where you've got a left that is saying abortion up to 9 months, no questions. And we've had these people on this show say that outright. Yes. And I'm like, that's crazy to me. And here I am traditionally in the Democrat camp of pro-choice, meaning in the first trimester or the first 6 to 10 weeks or 12 weeks or 15 weeks, we'll find that number. Even Trump said something like that. Conservatives saying, no, we're pro-life, no abortion, no matter what. Yet I am more aligned with conservatives in that we all recognize taking the life of a baby that is completely capable of surviving on its own makes no sense. That's just insane. So what happens when you have a state like Colorado where they're actively aborting, I'm doing air quotes here, babies at the point of birth because it's legally allowed? Should the federal government go in and start arresting these doctors and prosecuting them? At what point do you then have the left saying you are the authoritarian fascist arresting medical professionals, and they frame it the way they want?
I think it's time for us to give a big double-barreled fuck you to the left. Pardon the language here, folks. Why do we give a shit about what the left is saying? So you're telling me that the side recommending genital mutilation, saying we should put kids in shit schools in inner cities for generations that have no chance of prosperity, the side that won't pay a freaking dime in extra taxes themselves, that demands they sit on their fat asses and do nothing all day while you support them through your meritocratic work, that we should take them seriously when, oh, look, you guys are the fascists because there's an infant child that's done nothing wrong. We're not going to suck its brains out and you want to do something to stop. I don't really give a shit what the left says. So I'm not suggesting you do. I'm just saying, like, if you want cutesy time and stuff, like, I'm definitely not your guy because I give zero fucks about that.
So
like,
this is the point. When do you send the federal law enforcement to go arrest them all in Colorado?
See, that's different. That's a different argument because there is an option there. Like if we're talking about, you can't transfer the abortion argument over to that because we're talking about like sucking out a kid's brains in a post-birth abortion, or we're talking about crime and law enforcement. Like we have an option. Why? I lived through it in New York City. So before we send in the National Guard and talk about any military intervention, we could just do like what we actually did in New York. It was called broken windows policing. It wasn't even complicated. They just went out. I mean, we don't have time to go over the whole thing here, but the essence of it is really, really simple. They went out and said, hey, we should just arrest people for doing like crimes. Like, it can't be that simple. No, I promise you it was. When I got out of the police department, the whole idea was, listen, we need cops on the corner. So if you see a kid jumping a turnstile in a train station, let him go, Tim, because you know what? I need you.
All right, I dipped out for a quick second, but I was listening to it while I was gone, and that was an excellent little rant there by Dan Bongino. And if you guys tuned in earlier to the podcast or the stream, the reason I wanted to watch this video is because I seen a clip of it, and it was that clip right there of Dan just going like full in and not holding back, which he obviously does on his show a little bit. So that's why I wanted to watch this episode, to see him not hold back and kind of go in and let us know what he really thinks. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. I appreciate you tuning in for the stream. Make sure that you like and share it if you can. That would be great. If you want to support, you could always sign up for locals if you want to contribute there. $5 a month helps keep the stream going, helps me, keep streaming. And the more members we get, the more I can do this. So if you want to help out, I would definitely appreciate it. Now I'll shut up and we'll get back into this.
Out there, I can't have you processing this kid all night. That's not a dumb idea. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. We want to prevent the robberies and the rapes, not that. Well, what happened? The dude who jumped the turnstiles, the guy who rapes the woman, he hasn't paid a fare. So you catch him there. And they cleaned up New York overnight.
And this is my point. When Trump gets elected, do we send in 2,000 agents to start arresting all of the doctors? All of them. They all have to be arrested because they're all facilitating abortion up to the point of birth.
If you are killing an infant child in violation of the law, then I'm really sorry, but you made that decision.
So in El Salvador, when you've got 10, 15,000 guys in one area who are all obviously displaying tattoos, working as guards, actively participating in seditious actions, then they send in the government and they arrest them all. And the problem is when we get these photos of all these gang members being arrested and you get people of good principle saying like, I'm kind of worried about a government going and rounding all these people up. Now people in El Salvador, I met a guy in DC from El Salvador and he was talking to another guy. I heard him mention something about it. I said, oh, are you from El Salvador? He says, yes. And I said, what do you think about what's going on? And he says, I left there a long time ago, but now it's getting really, really good and I'm going to go back. I'm like, someone who moved to America now wants to go back to El Salvador. So my concern is this. I completely agree. We have to be worried about a government that goes rogue. It was conservatives who were very gung-ho on Patriot Act stuff. And
not me, man.
Not necessarily.
You go back and look at my campaign videos.
But and it was Obama who signed the indefinite detention provision. So I'm not saying it's just Republicans.
Yeah.
But Luke brings up how he was trying to tell Republicans like, hey man, watch out for this. This DHS stuff is going to come and bite you in the ass. It's hard to know whether what you're doing will work out perfectly. But I think it's a losing position to be like, hey, I don't want to go and arrest 1,000 people because of what the precedent set if another bad person gets in office. It's like, not, you got to arrest bad people doing bad things, even if it means it looks bad. So you end up with people in law enforcement saying, I'll give you a story actually. I was just skating in Hagerstown Skate Park. And the local guys over there, Hagerstown, Maryland. You know where Hagerstown is.
I know it well, yeah.
They said a gang of young kids came there. I believe this was not this past weekend, but this was Friday, I think, and beat the crap out of a guy and robbed him. And the cop said, we won't do anything. We can't do anything about it. We can't lay a hand on these kids. And if anyone else does, they're getting arrested because they're concerned about what the locals the public will think about cops coming in and grabbing a bunch of kids and roughing them up and arresting them in the scene that it causes. So they're like, we're going to back away from it. And this leads to excessive lawlessness. The solution would then be having a team of cops come out in gear, grabbing 12 kids, pinning them down and arresting them all. And then you get a ton of videos of cops in specialized armor fighting a mob of kids, a gang. You got to arrest them. You got to arrest them.
But I'm not saying not arrest them. I'm just saying
what I'm saying is the scale.
Habeas corpus, bring forth the body and show me some evidence. Like, but that's the thing.
But they're not going in El Salvador and just being like, no charges or trial, you're being renditioned.
No, I listen. I'm not suggesting that every single person in that jail, or even a small minority, most of them probably. Let me tell you the story. Can I tell you a quick story?
Hell yes.
I'm working a big case. We're doing a proffer. I'm a federal agent. I'm not a cop anymore. I'm working with the Secret Service. I'm in a proffer session with this guy. Proffer, they call it a king for a day deal. Bad guy's lawyer comes in. You're sitting around a table, no different than this. Basically, whatever he says in there, they call it king for a day because we're not going to use it against him unless he lies. If he lies, then he can use it. So it's called a proffer session. We're in there with this guy. We get this guy. This is a massive, massive fraud scheme going on. I'm not going to say the guy's name, obviously, but we pull out a photocopy of his driver's license. We slide it across the table. It's the wrong guy. It's not the guy. It's a different guy. I'm like, he turns around. He goes, that's not me. We're like, it wasn't my case. It was I'm like, holy shit, that's not this guy. Now, the crazy thing is the guy admitted to 20 or 30 different crimes. Proper session, which is so, and we're like, what the hell do we do now? This guy, because it's a proffer, it's a king for a day. My point is that We have rules and procedures, and those rules and procedures have to matter. For as much as I would have loved to have pulled that guy out of in handcuffs, fuck the rules. You just admitted to all this stuff. We know you did it. The hard reality is once those rules go away and it becomes a discretion of people in power, they will always abuse it. Absolutely. Always.
But I don't think that's what, so this conversation starts with El Salvador specifically. I don't think that's what El Salvador is doing. I think now what you're actually seeing is a president who said we're going to uphold the law as the law is meant to be upheld, instead of governments that were working with the criminals.
Yeah, but you got to worry about the guy that comes after Bukele. That's the problem.
I just don't see this making sense. A president comes in El Salvador and says, "Hey, all these things they're doing is illegal, and these cartels were working with corrupt government officials. Now that I'm here, I'm going to start arresting them for crimes." I am not worried about what happens next, because the next president should uphold the law in the exact same way that the previous did.
But the thing is, he's arresting them for crimes. It's not for not crimes.
That's why I'm saying,
I don't want to make the enemy the perfect of the good, Tim. I'm not suggesting like El Salvador, they can just get a fine little court system like we had in New York and the NYPD. Like, they obviously don't have the judicial structures we do or the fidelity to process like we do. So I don't make the enemy. That's why I'm not condemning the guy like, he's full of shit. You know what? There are going to be a lot of people who live because of that. My point, I guess, in this whole thing, and where I don't want to be confused with you or get sideways on this one, is I just think we got to be very careful.
Yeah, I think the whole point, or what he's about to get to, if I can interject here before he actually gets to it, it sounds to me like what he's going to say is, this may have worked out for El Salvador because of their situation and what's going on there. But what I don't like is conservatives thinking that the El Salvador method is something that we could actually do here. I think that's where he's gonna have to take this, because obviously it's going to work in El Salvador. They're locking up all the gang members. It will dramatically reduce all the crime, and it'll be a much safer place. Like Tim Pool said, the one guy he talked to is thinking about moving back there now that they've actually cleaned it up. And, Tim Pool is also saying, well, you kind of need to do the same thing here, but it's just, we're not the same country, and we don't operate the same way. We got different rules, and there would be different blowback from it. So I think that's kind of what he's going to say here.
Careful championing this stuff here. Like, this is some kind of model for the United States. A lot of people even on our side were like, oh my gosh, if we could only do this here. Like what? Like spying on people without warrants like we did for Trump? Like,
but is that what he's doing?
Well, how's he getting all this information? You're telling me they filed like 100,000 warrants? I mean, they're police force. I do the simple logistics, right? I mean, the FBI's got a surveillance squad that can monitor in a city probably less than, 500-600 people, far less than that any given day. You're telling me like all of these people got some kind of judicial process? I don't know. I'm afraid to champion that. I think everyone else should be too. And you know what? If it makes me like, what are you, someone said to me, you're a bleeding heart liberal or something. I said, well, are you a madman? Like, are you crazy? I'm the guy on Fox and all these things defending the cops when they do good police work. I'm the guy doing that.
So I'll give you an example. In DC on January 20th, 2017, or 21st, I think it was, several hundred far-left extremists were firebombing vehicles, setting fires in the streets, smashing windows. They all wore black intentionally. They told everybody, hey, show up on this day. We're going to protest Trump. Wear all black. When the cops surrounded everybody and arrested several hundred of them, the court said, we can't prosecute you because we are required to prove as an individual you committed the crime. So the government tried charging them with conspiracy because they all chose to wear black to hide the crimes of the individuals in the crowd. And the court said, you can't do that. Prove to me that man right there threw the firebomb, or he is free to go. So,
see, that's not a problem to me, though. That's not a problem for me. That is how America actually works. We will let 100 guilty people go so we don't lock up the one innocent guy. That's supposed to be how the system works. That's why it's much riskier. It's not as safe to be in a free country. But it's worth it, folks. It's worth it. So sometimes you got to let the bad guy go. Like Dan Bongino did in that interview. They gave him king for the day. They interviewed him. He admitted to 20, 30 felonies. But they had given him king for the day. So they got to let him go. You got to move on. And that's how the system has to work, or there is going to be no justice, which is kind of the situation we're in right now. If you're on the left, it doesn't matter what you do. You don't go to jail. If you're on the right, you could not do anything and they'll just make up something and send you to jail for it. So you got to stick to principles, though. You got to stick to principles. So is it unfortunate that they didn't lock up a few hundred Antifa members for 6 months? Would that have dramatically reduced the riots in other areas? Because we know Antifa travels. Yeah, would have had a big effect. But next time the lefties are in power and the right does a big abortion thing, they'll send some lefties down to integrate, start some trouble, so they can cause the, call the thing a riot. And then all of a sudden, now they have the precedent to lock up 500 anti-abortion activists. So it's a slippery slope, and you have to be careful. Just because it'll benefit you this time doesn't mean it's going to benefit you long term. So, all right, let's get back into this.
Good. The only people who got criminally charged were those who pleaded guilty. And that was early on until the NGOs came in and said, no, don't worry. To all the leftists, if you committed felonies, we will make sure you never see a minute in jail. Not only were these people freed after destroying DC.
Introducing Final Press. It directly brews coffee in your mug to eliminate any...
In an insurrection, they sued the city and won large sums of money. A society that functions, that operates that way, can't function when you have the inverse happening to the other side. So you have the far left extremists firebombing buildings, smashing windows, and the courts say, sorry. Then you have January 6th, and they say, we will hunt you down to the ends of the earth and lock you up indefinitely without charge or trial. That's where we're currently at. So if my point is this, if you're staring at an opponent who is cheating to the extreme degree, and you keep saying, no, we're going to let them keep doing it. We want them to stop. Maybe one day we can stop them. I'm just like, at a certain point, the question is for El Salvador, the gangs are working with the government and they all know who the gangs are. They know who the bosses are, and it's corrupt as corrupt can be. So there's death.
Yeah, that's kind of what Carrie Lake said at the beginning of the stream. We started with the Carrie Lake press conference after her latest loss in her election case. And she basically said the judge said that the laws don't matter. You don't have to follow the laws. You can pretty much do whatever you want. They're kind of just suggestions. She did it half joking, but she's putting together an organization that's going to ballot chase, not harvest. Harvesting's illegal, but ballot chase. So we won't pick it up and take it and drop it off for you, but we will harass you, mail you, knock on your door, and make sure that you fill it out. So this is the organization that she's putting together. Because you can't just let them keep cheating. That's facts.
Nobody wants to be there. You get someone who comes in and says, we know who these guys are. They got the tattoos. We've got the records because they were colluding with government. Let's start arresting them. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying I know everything that happened. I'm just saying right now what we're dealing with in the U.S. is I watch the far left burn down cities and the courts then say, well, we agree with Dan Bongino on this. Then when the right goes in protests in Portland, the cops say, nope, we're going to lock them up because, they're part of a group.
Yeah, but the irony is like you're in all black. You could have been caught up in that, sent to jail illegally, right?
I was arrested.
You're wearing all black right now.
And I was arrested, but the people wearing all black.
But what if you had no recourse?
They were wearing hoodies and masks. And so you had a group of 200-300 people all dressed identically for the explicit purpose.
No, I get it, but you see my point? Like, what if you were just an innocent? You're wearing black right now. What if you got caught? Wouldn't you feel like...
I was wearing all black and I was arrested.
Yeah.
And I had a press card in my pocket. That's
kind of messed up,
and
right?
the cops pulled me out and said, you can go home now.
Yeah, but what if you couldn't? Because you had all black on. That's my point. Like,
if you show up to an Antifa rally dressed like Antifa, and you stand in a crowd of Antifa throwing firebombs at people.
Well, that's different.
But that's what they're doing.
No, but you didn't do that. No,
and that's why I got let go. My point is
I don't know where we disagree. Like the whole point that we don't have an actual justice system right now. One that we do have a justice system that's blind. It's blind to the Democrats, a political party. There's no air between us. They're like, I absolutely agree. My simple suggestion here is that there's a way to fix that. And the way to fix that, and the only way to fix it, it's not violence. Because once you cross the red line, it's over. Like there's no going back going, oh, I'm sorry I killed that guy. Like once you go down that path, there's just no And I think a lot of people who talk a lot of shit about violence have never been there. Like, if you guys actually sat there at a crime scene with like a dude's head blown off on the potatoes in a freaking bodega when you're the new guy, you know what that looks like? It doesn't even look real. Like, it looks fake. It doesn't look real. If you've never seen it, I swear, like, you're like, wow, that guy's head split in half. Like, that's kind of crazy. Like, I can see the cerebellum. Like, this, we have a way to fix this stuff. We have a constitutional process. The fact that it's broken isn't like, fuck it. Let's just like throw it out and declare like martial law.
But no one's saying that. I'm saying when Trump gets in, he should file every criminal indictment.
Yes.
If he smells,
fire everybody. I just said that on my show.
I think fire those who deserve to be fired. But if you smell even the lightest scent of anything criminal, lock them up.
But we totally agree. To the camera, I concur with Tim Pool. I don't know why how are we arguing about.
I mean, you guys are just outlining an inherent problem with liberalism, which is liberalism takes the opposing view seriously, and it's charitable. In essence, the whole point of that's where we get our innocent until proven guilty idea is because we look at the person and say we assume they're good, we assume that they're going to be innocent, we assume they're virtuous, and that's the way we approach them.
Let me put it this way: when the left gets I see a leftist get censored on Twitter, I will not defend them. You said you don't believe in free speech. Okay, I'll grant you your wish. To the people who don't believe in constitutional rights, don't stand for it and actively oppose it, I will not defend them. There's this meme that the left shares from Karl Popper about tolerating intolerance. And they say, we can't tolerate hate speech because the intolerant eventually take over and kick out the tolerant. And I'm like, okay, if you want to come to me and tell me my constitution and things I believe in should be destroyed, then when it comes to how our community, which is a sphere of influence that says, here are the rights that are granted to you, if you actively oppose those rights, I will make sure that when you are guilty of a crime, you don't get them because you don't want them.
Well, you don't have to defend them, and you probably shouldn't, but defend the rights themselves.
Agreed. So if someone is falsely accused and we don't have evidence, we defend them. But if someone is a known Antifa guy who is caught red-handed and on camera saying, F the Constitution, F this country, F you colonial whatever, and starts throwing fire, or those lawyers in New York, I say, I don't care to defend them if they don't look, my point is this. At a certain point, you're in a culture war and there are people actively trying to destroy your culture and your values. If we keep protecting them and they're exploiting our system to destroy us, we will lose.
I was fighting about this with people, or not fighting about this. This is a point that I've been trying to make on Twitter regularly.
It's so entertaining to watch, by the way.
Which is, America is a liberal country, and the people that are actively trying to corrupt our government are not liberals. They are authoritarians. And you have to understand that authoritarians have a completely different philosophy from liberals. Liberals believe that honesty is a virtue, right? Authoritarians don't believe that. You get consequentialists who believe that the actual results are the important part. So someone like Vosh-V, right? He'll say things like, and this is paraphrasing, but he says things like, I want to win for socialism. I don't want to lose for socialism. So that means it's okay for me to lie. That when he came here and he was on with Charlie Cook, he was pleasant, etc. And then he goes back to his show and he's just the most vile scumbag. He does it to leftists and stuff. And the point is, you can't believe people just because they say, just because of what they say. You have to understand where their philosophy comes from. And if you're an authoritarian, if you're not a liberal, there's no reason to believe that the person that's coming to you respects liberal principles, and there's no reason to believe that they're going to be honest. That's it.
I'm not a libertarian in the big L sense. I lean on the libertarian spectrum, and I'd probably be more towards traditional or classical liberal. I probably have a view that looks at the world not too dissimilarly to Starship Troopers, service guarantee citizenship kind of concept. My fear is this. Why is it that no anarchist civilization has ever prospered? It's because
it takes property rights.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Anarchists, depending on your definition, don't necessarily disagree with that. The issue is that they don't move fast enough. And in times of an emergency, you do need executive authority. And therein lies the big challenge. I don't believe you can simply just say, we will always uphold every guaranteed right no matter what. There are certain lines we obviously don't cross. Like, we're not going to rendition people, that's across the line. But they're making a point where a country is at war. A country at war can't be like, well, the West Coast was just invaded. A whole bunch of Chinese boats landed. They're currently taking over our cities. In order to do this right, we need to convene Congress to determine exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then, the session will resume tomorrow. Meanwhile, cities are blowing up, people are being killed. The reason why we have an executive branch is so that the president can make emergency decisions in terms of the military. So if we did get invaded on the West Coast or Alaska, the president does not need to go to Congress. He can be like, we have to act now. We are being killed. Boom, pulls the trigger. The challenge is, when do we determine that we are in active conflict with people who seek to destroy us? If foreign nationals invaded the U.S. and started committing acts of terror, we would give them certain rights, like international war rights and things like that. But for the most part, you're at war. Crazy stuff happens. And the rules of war only matter when it's controlled and limited warfare, like I think Henry Kissinger talks about, right?
Yeah, limited war is his idea.
Real war means nothing. Like, I hear these things like war crimes were committed. I'm like, yo, that doesn't matter. If there's a regime that commits every war crime in the book and then wins, the book will never mention a war crime being committed, and the idea of war crimes won't exist, because the person who wins the war wins. So my point is simply this. People are pointing out in the super chat that he suspended the Constitution. Fair point. I agree. Not a good thing. But if we're facing an existential threat where a group of people are seeking to burn the Constitution to the ground, do we say, let's protect those who are, like, you've got people outside a federal building in Portland trying to burn it down, and we kept going, well, but they have rights. So 90 days of firebombs being lobbed at a federal building and nothing being done about it.
That was just negligence. it was obvious crimes being. Kyle Serafin was on your show. They saw crimes. And it was just shitty police work. let's just be honest. But we already kind of haven't established a judicial principle about when we're allowed to violate rights, especially when it applies to things like religion. A compelling government interest, two-pronged test, right? And the least restrictive means. That's a pretty good guidepost for a violation of any rights, because you're going to have to violate people's rights, right? You have the right to assembly, right? But if the assembly tomorrow was a call for the open overthrow via violent means of the United States and the assassination of the president, that's going to be broken up because there's crimes being committed.
Right.
Like if you have a religion, for example, and the religion says whatever, it's Joey Bag of Donutsism, and it says we're going to bloodlet on children until we take 6 pints of blood.
The chat is loving Joey Bag of Donuts.
Oh, do they? Yeah, that's right.
It's the most New York thing that you've been dropping. I'm enjoying the hell out of it too, personally. So.
Only guy I know. But if it said we're going to bloodlet children for 6 weeks straight, take a pint of blood every day, you have freedom of it, but you can't, because there's a compelling government interest. We don't want the kid to die. And the least restrictive means would be to come in and say, not lock people up and say, hey, is there a different way for you to celebrate that? Like, I don't know, maybe an animal sacrifice or something, right? So we already have established guideposts. But I take your point that one of the things I think we specifically in the United States, especially liberals, which drives me crazy, tend to do, and you know them well, like you know more liberals than I do, is they tend to transplant our values overseas with this like spreading democracy crap. That's why I'm like, oh, Bukele's an idiot. Like, I'm not saying any of that. I'm simply suggesting with this entire thing, we have to understand that people around the world we are a very advanced culture. And no, American exceptionalism is not the same as Greek exceptionalism, like Obama said. It is literal exceptionalism. We are different. But that means everyone else is different than us. We are at the top of this totem pole, and transplanting that to other countries and going, oh, if they just did it better here, broken windows in El Salvador. I get it. That's naive. I'm just saying, like, we are a very advanced culture, and we're ridiculously rich. We have an established set of principles we should follow. And because liberals don't, I agree with your proposition there. We should never defend idiots personally. If you say, hey, I agree with you 100%. Hey, free speech sucks, ban conservatives. I'm not going to defend you personally, but I will absolutely defend a liberal's right in general, big R, God-given right to speak.
So I used to be much more just like libertarian, Constitution, and I still am for the most part. I used to say free speech for everybody. When a leftist got banned, I'd be like, nope, they have to have their free speech protected. And then something changed. So let me ask you, do you think parents have the ultimate say in what their kids learn, or we'll start there. Do you think
Yes.
parents have the ultimate say in terms of what their children learn?
Yeah, but what's the limiting principle? I mean, are we talking about teaching a kid, again, to assassinate the president of the United States?
Well, the answer is no then.
Yeah, well, you're talking in absolutes. Nothing in life, everything's on the margin. There's nothing in life is absolute. I mean, I wouldn't answer any question that way.
Do you think
that's like saying is killing wrong? Well, it depends on the circumstance.
Do you think parents have the absolute say in the medical treatments that their children receive?
No, I don't believe in any. No, what if they says I want? What if a parent says I want to cut off the nuts of my 5-year-old because they accidentally touched the Barbie doll?
So wait. So you're saying wait. So do you think the government should be allowed in certain circumstances to intervene to stop parents who are giving or neglecting?
All right, that's worth hearing twice. We got to back that up.
Suggesting with this entire thing, we have to understand that people around the world we are a very advanced culture. And no, America exceptions, we are different. But that means everyone else in countries are going, if they just did it better here, broken windows in El Salvador, advanced culture, and we're ridiculously rich. I agree with your proposition there. Speech sucks, ban conservatives. I'm not going to defend you personally, but I will absolutely defend a liberal's right in general, big R, God-given right to speak.
So here's, I used to be much more free speech for. So let me ask you, do you think parents have the ultimate say in what their kids learn, or we'll start there. Do you think parents have the ultimate say in terms of what their children learn?
Yeah, but what's the limiting principle? I mean, are we talking about teaching a kid, again, to assassinate the president of the United States?
The answer is no then.
Yeah, well, you're talking in absolutes. Nothing in life, everything's on the margin. There's nothing in life is absolute. I mean, I wouldn't answer any question that way.
Do you think
that's like saying is killing wrong? Well, it depends on the circumstance.
So, do you think parents have the absolute say in the medical treatments that their children receive?
No, I don't believe in any. No, what if they says I want? What if a parent says I want to cut off the?
Yeah, my first take was wrong, because I do agree with Dan on that. There is no absolute, so you can't just say, regardless of what parents want to do, they're allowed to do it to their kids, because there's some sicko parents out there. And we have an obligation to protect the children. Obviously, I answered immediately right away, just thinking about my own kids, because I'm not a sicko and wouldn't do anything weird to them. But you can't design a principle around that, because there are sick weirdos out there.
The nuts of my 5-year-old because they accidentally touched the Barbie doll.
So wait. So you're saying wait. So do you think the government should be allowed in certain circumstances to intervene to stop parents who are giving or neglecting the actual health of their children?
Yeah, isn't that everything though?
What about the vaccine then?
The vaccine. What about?
What if a parent says, "I'm not going to give my kids get my kids vaccinated"?
Yeah,
should the government then come in and force their kids?
Again, what's the compelling government interest there? Is that child not having the vaccine going to hurt someone else? No, it's going to hurt the child. So there's no compelling government interest. It's personal. Wait, hold on. And second, what's the least restrictive means? The least restrictive means is just to leave it alone, not to enact some kind of new law.
The argument is for mumps, for instance. Mumps has started reemerging because parents are refusing to get their kids vaccinated.
Yeah, but
that's why they create the mumps vaccine mandate.
Yeah, but you have an option against that. Like, you could go get a mumps vaccine and you're not at risk. That was my beef with the COVID vaccine. Is the whole point is they painted it out like it was a compelling government interest because it would stop community spread. And then we found out it didn't do that. And then we found out second that it didn't even stop you from getting COVID either. So, yeah, I don't like questions in absolutes because there are no absolutes. It's like saying heat or no heat in winter. That's not a real question. It's like how much heat,
and this is my point. When the vax mandate stuff happened, you had the left arguing the government has a right to intervene if parents aren't doing right by their children in terms of medical care. There's a lot of questions about like parents who make their kids vegan. And then when it came to the issue of trans kids, the right said the government parents have no right to put their kid through this, and the government should stop them. And many people have even said the parents should be arrested if they try and get their kid, child sex changes and things like that. So there is no principle of parents have rights. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And if we don't have if there is no law.
Let's explore your future with Udemy.
That was a weird commercial cut.
Law, that like principle of a parent has the final say. They don't have the final say. We just have a morality. The left argues The government should not be able to intervene to stop a child's sex change, but the government should intervene to give a kid a vaccine. The right says no, the government should not be able to force vaccines, and parents should not be allowed to give their kids sex changes. It's an inversion. So the real issue is just the shared moral framework. There are, you find that even leftists, like Jimmy Dore, would probably agree with the right position on not giving kids sex changes. And there's a big distinction then between what the left and the right is simply on moral frameworks, not on principles.
Yeah, but those aren't morally equivalent. Again, apply a simple test. You're talking about a vaccine in one case that, granted, may have some serious side effects, okay? But as far as we know, has not killed every single person who got it, right? But then you're talking on the other hand about permanently altering a young child with no capacity for advanced decision making by cutting their nuts off. Like, that's not the same thing. That's why I'm saying,
it doesn't need to be for my point. My point is simply that your morals are different from the left's.
Yeah, because we have them. Like, they don't have morals. Your point is accurate. The left, the thing about the left is the way people attack the left, which is completely wrong, and I say on my show all the time, never do this, is they attack them on the hypocrisy front. I do it as a humor Alinsky thing just to embarrass them. You're shaking your head because they don't care. The left doesn't care about hypocrisy. They care about hierarchy and power. See, we have morals. We have a set of guiding big R God-given rights principles that I always say to people, like, we have an emergency brake on our behavior that leftists don't have.
Right.
I cannot physically attack you as a principled conservative and beat the crap out of you because I don't like you like Antifa does to us, because our rights come from God. But so do yours, even if your politics are freaking stupid. The left doesn't have that. That's why they freak me out.
This is my point. If you identify those who share your moral values, if everybody in this country shared the same moral framework, you'd need very little police officers. You'd need very little in way of law
Federalist
enforcement.
51, man,
Yeah.
right?
If men were angels,
right?
sure,
I
government would be unnecessary.
But we're not.
Well, so the issue is now with the culture war is the left has no moral framework. Their moral framework is there is no truth but power.
Yes.
So they will say anything.
Amen, brother.
And the culture war right has Christian moral framework, whether or not people like Bill Maher want to understand it or accept it. The reality is the Constitution is rooted very, very much so in a Christian moral framework. That is not me saying everybody of good moral standing is Christian or needs to be. I'm saying a lot of these ideas, I've talked about it quite a bit, like Blackstone's formulation. If he says it's better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. My point is simply that there is no simple blanket principle. There is only the extent to which we share morals. And we find it morally reprehensible for the reasons you described to give a child a sex change. At the same time, we find it morally reprehensible for a government to mandate a medical procedure. The left just wants power. They will exploit our principles and argue, hey, I thought you were for parental rights. You said in Florida, parental rights. And the parents have final say. Well, Jazz Jennings' parents say that Jazz should get a sex change. They'll try to exploit you on the fact that you have asserted this is your principle, and then they'll try to navigate through it. My response is simply this. I don't care about that. I have a moral line. You cross it, I tell you to screw off. That means it's not about parents, it's not about principles, it's not about rights. Free speech, in my opinion, extends to those who believe in free speech. I will protect it for everybody who says I have a right to say it. The moment some leftist comes out and says, no one has free speech rights but me, I say, I look forward to you getting arrested when you lose your free speech rights, and I won't defend you. That's my point.
Yeah.
Let's go to Super Chats.
Man, that was some deep stuff, bro. Anyone got an ibuprofen or something like that?
Well, my thing is simply like, at what point do we say like, hey, if we're playing a game of Monopoly, like I said before, and they're cheating, and we just keep saying, all right, we're not going to win. We have to at some point be like, look, you're cheating. I'm not going to play this game with you anymore. You don't get to play with me and my friends because you cheat all the time. So, and they're like, hey, that's not fair. Everyone's allowed to play the game. Not you anymore, dude, because you're a cheater.
The thing that sucks is the reaction to, like, the left wants the reaction. Like, they always complain about reactionaries, but they start the dialectic. They initiate what is going to make the right react. Then when they get the reaction from the right, they can go ahead and say, look, we need to change this or change that because look at the reactionaries and blah, 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 blah. The way that historically a lot of countries, and this is not something that I'm endorsing the U.S. doing, the way that historically a lot of countries have dealt with communists or leftists being what they are, dishonest and having a different set of principles, is it ends up being like fascism. Like it ends up being like Pinochet. And that's not good, but it's better than communists.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about.
We
this
gotta go to Super
Colorado-
Chats.
I want to tap this out, man. This Colorado 9-month abortion thing, like if it's federally legal, like the feds are not involved and it's a state rights thing, I don't think you would want to send the feds over there to bust it up.
Completely disagree.
That's the fascism route. I don't want.
No, it's not. It was not fascism for the union to be like, no slavery. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're not going to allow that.
Human slavery.
And it wasn't.
is
It
one
wasn't.
thing.
I know it's overly simplistic to say because that's not what the Civil War was. The Civil War was a wide range of issues.
Part of
and
why
slavery, the Emancipation Proclamation was only after the Civil War had already started. My point is, if there
or
are people in a
Instagram
state
share?
that it's like if Colorado legalizes, I mean, we'll just talk about 9-month abortion. Like we are talking about something so morally shocking, reprehensible. The overwhelming majority of Americans oppose it, and the only way the left gets these things through is by lying to people and tricking them. It's why you'll often have these conversations with leftists, and I'll give you a really, really simple one. It really confuses me. Why is it that leftists are so afraid to say that they are homosexual? It may seem like a silly example, but I genuinely mean it. Lance from the Surfs comes on this show and says that it is heterosexual straight for a male to engage in adult activities with another male, so long as that male is effeminate. And
I don't think he's messing with us, dude.
They're not. They've made this argument for like 10 years.
You got
you got to pay attention to this stuff. I remember 7 years ago.
You think he's messing with
He said that if you
trans lesbians exist, and you are completely wrong on this, Ian.
Man, anyway, sorry.
So my point is, why are they so afraid to admit that they're gay? Because I got no problem with people who are gay at all. Mm-hmm. But this guy, Lance, comes on the show and says he thinks it is straight for a male to engage in activities with a male, so long as the male's effeminate. Right. He even said to you, Ian, that if a male was to engage in relations with a manly, ugly woman, that would be gay.
But it's even though it's no end. I don't know.
They've made this argument for a long time. Trans lesbians have their own flag. I remember this 10 years ago. They were talking about if you are a female who won't date, if you are a lesbian who won't date a trans woman, you are transphobic. Right. And so my point is simply this. If you're a male and you like males, that's called homosexual because you both have the same, makeup essentially.
Wedding tackle.
But for some reason, they refuse to say, they're like embarrassed, they refuse, they reject it. They're not playing fair, they're lying, they won't admit what they actually think, and they will lie to you to get what they want. 100%. I think the reason they're afraid to say it is because they know that if they go to a regular average person and say, you're gay, then they're going to be like, hey, screw you, no, I'm not. Yeah. So they lie and say, no, you're totally straight if you suck on that dude, you know what I mean? Or that trans woman, sorry. It's a lie to manipulate people. The only way they get away with it. So my point, going back to abortion, Colorado outright says there are no restrictions at any point in abortion. If you go to the average American and say, should a baby at the point of birth, should a doctor be allowed to kill that baby? 1 person out of 100 might say yes. A leftist maybe. How many leftists there are?
Yeah, how many pink-haired
But what if you say,
talk to?
if the mother deems an abortion necessary, should there be any restrictions on that? They're going to say, no, because in their mind, they're thinking 2 weeks pregnant, a panicked mother who's impoverished or suffering some medical problem. They're not thinking about what the left is actually trying to do. 9 months. So my point is, if they're doing that at the governmental level, I believe that violates the 14th Amendment. I believe that if a baby can survive on its own, it's protected by the Constitution, and the federal government should go in and arrest every single doctor. And I'm not even staunchly pro-life. I'm just saying, if the baby can live, has constitutional rights.
No baby can survive on its own. They need constant medical attention.
No human can survive on its own.
I know.
Then you still have constitutional rights.
Adult humans can live alone.
No, they can't.
Yeah, you could get a homestead out there. And
most humans being social creatures for the most part, struggle to survive on their own.
Little babies will die within 24 hours or 48 hours if they're left to their own devices.
The duration to which a human will survive by themselves is no merit in whether or not they get constitutional rights.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
should an adult with no arms and legs have no constitutional rights?
No.
Then why wouldn't a baby?
I'm not saying that the baby shouldn't have constitutional rights. That's not
okay. Then a baby has a 14th Amendment right not to be killed.
If it's the mother that's having an abortion that's not a human at that legally, then I'm just talking about the law, and that you got to leave it up to this. I think you got to leave it up to local law enforcement. Like this broken windows policing policy wasn't the feds going in there and breaking up New York. It was you leave it to the people. If they really think it's abhorrent, they'll police themselves.
Every step of the way throughout history, they've argued that the people that they enslave, torture, and murder aren't real people. So I do not accept it. a baby that can survive.
Yeah,
I don't like
admit
abortion,
that it's a baby.
and I'm pro-choice simply because there are very, very difficult libertarian questions on when the government is allowed to intervene, what knowledge the government is allowed to have, and within a certain time period, the mother and the doctor having to make difficult decisions. And I also agree that abortion is exploited as contraception, which I think is disgusting. However, at a certain point, if the baby can survive on its own, then I think killing it violates inalienable rights, constitutional rights. And my stance then would be, if you like, this is what I was talking to Lance about. If the baby has to come out of the mother anyway, why kill it if it can survive on its own?
That was great. I don't know if you know, I played that on my podcast. It's interesting because we're talking about, you're correct in your assertion that the world is not black and white. The whole pool of ethics is about gray areas. Ethics is an entire course is taught in college because really what in life is black and white? I mean, there's so few things, right? Like I said, oh, don't kill. Oh yeah, definitely don't kill. Yeah, but what if he comes into your house late at night and tries to kidnap? Oh, okay, you can, nothing's really, But ironically, you brought up abortion. That's the one area for me that's just absolutely black and white. I get it. Other people have different positions. I'm not indicting anyone here. I'm just saying, my record of success on this is 100%, right? Every single human being on planet Earth ever has gone through conception. That doesn't mean every conceived a person has been born. There's miscarriages, children die in the womb all the time. There's ectopic pregnancies. Things don't work out for pregnancy. But my record of success is 100%. There's not a single person in this room that hasn't been conceived. So, right? I mean, does anybody dispute that? So I'm 100 for 100. You're 0 for nothing. When people go, oh, I don't know when life begins. Yeah, I do. Conception. I got 100% success.
Completely agree.
So just say, now I would be more comfortable with leftists. And I get it. There's different positions. I would be more comfortable with you if you would just be honest and say, if human life is inconvenient for me, the mom or the dad, I feel I should be able to exterminate it. So I'll debate you on it, but at least you're honest. They're just full of shit. Oh, no, it's not a life. It's like a clump of cells. I'm a clump of cells.
It is.
It's not a person until it gains personhood legally.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about legally. We're talking about black and white morals. You're wiping out and exterminating a human life. So is anybody uncomfortable with that? Correct. Think about that.
They're not. The left is not.
But that's kind of like, we used to have this thing in my my high school. I went to a Catholic high school. Double quotes, 2 quotes that were related. You have to think of something clever. So one kid came in with a great one. Camus, God is dead. And he wrote, Camus is dead, God. You don't you, if you, I get it. I believe in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm a religious guy. I'm not your preacher. I'm not your rabbi. I'm not your imam. You do you, whatever, man. I'm just saying, I'm not taking that chance, man. You really want to go up there one day in front of the pearly gates and be like, yeah, I wiped out 6 kids, had 6 abortions, and I'm an abortion doctor, and I wiped out 2,000 lives. I'm not sure you're getting into that movie. I'm pretty sure you're kind of fucked.
Factory farming, too.
We do got to go to Super Chats.
Farming, man.
But I do want to say, some people are shocked. Like Tim said, life begins at conception. I have always maintained.
Yeah, but it's the difference between life and personhood are 2 different
things.
Care. Oh, it matters legally.
No, well,
no, I don't.
Listen,
if someone's,
a lot of things matter legally. I mean, that's
Why does he bring up factory farming in this situation? That's comparable in any way at all. Factory farming?
It's a non sequitur. Of course it matters legally. We have laws that try to establish some bedrock of morality in a set of judicial principles and legal principles. I totally get that. But I think the point of human life is absolutely black or white. You can't say we don't know when life begins or when it's a person. So don't wipe the kid out and guess. What kind of answer is that?
So I have a conversation with Glenn Beck that ends with a handshake, a smile, and oh, these are interesting questions. And my position has always been, can the government mandate one person provide their body to another? Where are those limits and restrictions put in place? How does the government informed? There's a lot of serious challenges there. If a woman, so the problem is, if a woman is forcefully impregnated and says, I never wanted this, I don't want it, and you can't force me to share my body with another life form, I don't think the government can intervene and be like, nope, we are forcing you to provide your blood and body to this person that you never chose and you were responsible in every respect. The challenge then is, what do? They exploit the law for contraception, which is disgusting. And I don't have a solution there.
Yeah, but Tim, do you ever notice, when you talk about crisis pregnancies, right? Mm-hmm. Grab a liberal, any liberal, and go, okay, tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. We'll pass a law tomorrow and support it. every single rape or case of incest that there will be, you can abort the child whenever you want in exchange for saving every other life. Would you support it? No, I wouldn't. So you don't give a shit. You're just making that up.
I agree.
Key feature for me with Remarkable is that paper feel. The other is the amazing responsiveness of the e-ink.
That's really the crux of the issue.
I'm making your point, I get.
That's the crux of the issue when you're arguing with a liberal, though, is they don't really have a firm stance. It bends with the wind. Like you said in that example, all right, so let's say we save every baby based off of rape or incest. Right? We'll pass that law tomorrow. Can we not kill the other 99%? And they won't take that deal. Because it's not about the 1%, which is their whole argument on why we need abortion, is the 1%. But that's not actually what they want.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm just kind of doubling down on your point. But because it's a crisis pregnancy, right, which it is, and we should never, ever diminish that. And no, I'm a guy. I don't know what it's like, obviously, to bear children. There are two genders. Liberals are idiots, right? I'll never understand that, and I don't pretend to. That doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of answering really difficult questions like, yes, this woman is carrying a pregnancy she does not want. That was imposed upon her in a brutal act. But that does not absolve us of the fact that we are then killing a child. And someone asked me this once. This changed my mind on this completely. I was at this convention there, and someone came up to me. He was a big pro-life advocate, but a very nice guy, very super nice guy. And he said, well, why not just kill the toddler? I mean, it's child rape. And you're like, well, why would we do that? That it's alive. It's alive in the womb too.
And this is the question that I asked these leftists. I said, two women conceive at the exact same time, identically. They're twin sisters who had twin brothers who both conception happened at the exact same moment. At 8.5 months, one woman is going into early labor because rough car ride, something shocked, and then she some trauma, and boom, baby's coming. Other sister, totally fine, sitting in the hospital bed, baby's not coming. I said, at 8.5 months, the baby comes out and is delivered perfectly healthy. The identical baby in every single way, still in the womb. Can it be aborted? And yet the left says every time, yes. And I say, what's the difference between the layer of skin in front of it? But we got to go to Super Chats because we are way too late. I got to do it.
We're going to read it. And the
Moen22 says,
I love you guys.
Tim, did you see the Ukraine war has spilled into Russia? The Belgorod region bordering Ukraine looks exactly like Western-built insurgency. Have you guys heard about this at all?
Yeah, there's people talking about separatist movement. I haven't read a lot about it. I've seen a couple tweets. I was going to dig in when we got done, but it's possible they
dig into this in your post, so don't miss it. Right there goes a plug there.
That was like the first 10 minutes. So we're not doing an after show. We recorded a pre-show, which will be up at about 10 p.m. As soon as we wrap the show, we're putting it live because Dan's got a hard stop. He's got to bounce. But we appreciate you sticking around. We're coming in early so we could do the pre-record.
Awesome.
Paul Tascalo says Epstein's former Gulfstream G550 private jet is currently available for charter, sold at auction, changed registration and tail number. Let me tell you more about it. Look me up. PJ Paul with Vault Aviation. Gulfstream. I'm going to avoid those from now on. Like, I've ever broker and they're like, we have a plane for it. It's a Gulfstream G50, 550 private jet. I'm going to be like, no.
You're being recorded. You're being recorded on that.
Not even that. I don't want to be in that plane. I don't care what they do. You can't clean that plane.
We were talking about turboprops earlier. You're like, hey, bring that one up.
You can scrub that thing with all the bleach in the world. And I don't think that thing is getting clean. Nah, but we don't want to go on that plane. When we do fly, we do the lower cost ones. I'm gonna give a shout out to Verijet because it's like the cost of flying first class to fly private. And so if we need to do a flight for a show, like where were we, just in Texas or whatever? No.
You guys do road shows?
And then you went to Florida.
Sometimes. Yeah. Florida, we had to, it's the only way to do it. And you know this too. A lot of people will be like, oh, you're so rich and elitist for flying private. And it's like, if I didn't, I couldn't do it. I can't work 16 hours on a Friday and then catch a ride.
I've never been shy about that. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I grew up above a bar. My dad was a plumber. My mom worked the checkout counter at Finest. I busted my ass, man. I tell people all the time, like, I'm a capitalist. I'm not embarrassed. I'm like, it's Bernie Sanders who's got to. I'll fly wherever I want. Yeah. I'm not apologizing for anything. You know?
Well, I want people to feel like when they support us, we're doing everything we can with our resources to win the culture war and not being frivolous with it. But the reality is, like, we're going to fly. If we fly down to do your show, the only way that's possible is if we get a private jet.
Yeah,
I'll
send you one.
Oh, thank you. You can hook it up.
Paula, you got my.
But it's like, you know, I wake up at 8 a.m., I do the show, then I work throughout the day. We wrap the show at 11 p.m., and then we have a plane waiting for us. We have to speed to get on so that I can get to bed to wake up. This is what we had to do for the Valuetainment show. I'm like, yeah, I want to come down. I want to come on the show. I want to talk about these things to an audience that may not hear it.
Patrick Bet-David?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's a cool
awesome.
cat, man. He was on my Fox show a couple times. He was awesome. He's a
Super
really
cool.
good guest, man.
In order to do it, we wrap the show on Friday, hop in the car and go as fast as we can to the local airport, hop on a private jet, fly to Miami. I get 5 hours of sleep before I have to wake up, get cleaned up, hop on a show, and then talk for another 4 hours. And then no day off because I'm working again.
Well, I told you during the break, like for us, it doesn't make sense to do it otherwise. Because if, let's say we're doing a certain amount of revenue per show, for me to fly and get caught in an airport and then miss 2 or 3 shows, it winds up becoming like the most ridiculous money loser ever.
Right.
So, and you can, you know, if you shop around, you get decent prices. It's not as bad as everybody thinks it is, you know?
Yeah, I mentioned Verijet. We had some issues with them early on that were really bad, but we gave them a chance. And these are like flying SUVs, are super small. But basically, you get 4 adults and 2 kids in there, and it's like the cost of first class. So it's not as expensive as people think it is. But granted, this is not like a Gulfstream. It's a little pod, like a flying SUV.
I gotta look
but I think
this
that's
up, man.
I mean, look, if you want to fly in comfort, you go to your broker and you get a King Air or whatever, and you get a Gulfstream.
I don't have a jet. I wouldn't buy. I don't fly enough. Like I fly a few times a year. That's it. I mean, I don't fly at all. I live in Florida. Like, why would you leave? You know,
exactly.
I'm down there.
All right, let's see. We got here. Jake says, I'm fairly certain that right around the time Epstein was picked up,
he was
Acosta
just
said
doing a
on
line
camera
right there.
that he was approached and told Epstein was above his pay grade and belonged to intelligence. Very interesting.
Do you see? That reporter told me that. This reporter is totally legit too. She was not messing around when she told me that.
Itsy Bitsy Spider Production says System of a Down is one of the most underrated bands of all time.
Yes!
From the overlapping
Who is
vocal
this guy?
ranges to the operatic structure that almost rival Queen.
I'm sending
now,
him
I know,
the
hold on.
Booker's
I don't think they're underrated.
Yeah, I was
They're one
gonna
of the
say,
biggest bands in the world.
They're great. Like, you can like them. I totally get it. But calling System of a Down underrated
That's
is
crazy.
probably an inaccurate use of the term underrated.
If you asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you I didn't like them. But hearing Toxicity like 3 days ago, I was just like
Dude,
riveted.
the chorus in Chop Suey is probably one of the greatest things
all
ever
time.
put to
It's
music.
one of all time.
Right?
For sure,
Tell
yeah.
me, if your head ain't banging at the end of that, man, then you ain't
got
doing it
problems.
right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I listen to that still on the plane
All
with
the
the
time,
headphones
man.
in,
Yeah.
blasting my eardrums out. That's
It's so
stuff.
crazy. It's like achromatic. It's like the math is all weird. Like the rhythm is funky,
Wake
man.
up.
But they are, so nuts.
Love it, man.
It's
It's
awesome.
awesome.
So unique.
C-Dub says, hey, Tim and Dan, I've been a long-time listener to both your podcasts, just at 2 years as a member this month. Is there any chances of combining forces with a venture like Cast Brew and Parallel Economy? Timcast.com proudly uses Parallel Economy for our memberships.
We love having Timcast. We adore Tim. Hey, listen, I'll answer for myself. I don't want to speak for Tim, but I have been seeking partnerships with Tim forever because I believe in new media. Tim was a pioneer. He was live streaming way before me. I don't say that to kiss the man's ass. There's no need for that. We don't do that here. But no, man, you're a real pioneer in this. And if you and me and 2 or 3 others, and I think you know this, like there's probably about, and I don't say this with any air of pretension, folks, don't take it the wrong way. I'm just basing it on pure numbers, me being in the live streaming business and owning a chunk of Rumble. There are probably 10 people in the United States right now who can do what we do and bring the numbers. It's just a fact when it comes to political podcasting on our side, the libertarian right side, right? If me, you, and let's say a few of those others combine forces, I mean, we could start a behemoth, mammoth of a company that would scare the living shit out of just about everyone in the political business.
I was just thinking we should do a live event, do some collaborative.
Oh, we got
so
we
awesome.
got big news on the Miami event coming up, which I'm pretty sure I can just say. As of right now, it is my understanding, I am told, Matt Gaetz, Don Jr., and Patrick Bet-David are confirmed for our live show in Miami.
So good.
When is that?
Sometime in October. So
October, yeah.
Dude,
I'm
that's-
probably
I'll
like
come
right
down.
right now
I'll
our
drive to
events
that.
people are probably freaking out like, what are you doing, Tim? Don't say it right now. And I was like, but when I told me that Matt Gaetz and Don Jr. definitely are going to be there live on stage, I was like, can I say that? And they're like, yeah, it's confirmed. Don was here, and I'm like, we got you coming down. He's like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, you want to come
Miami.
down?
Yeah, bro, I'm in. I'm committing right now. Let's do it.
This venue might not be
Miami.
big enough.
We go to
Maybe
Miami.
2 days.
My daughter goes.
We have
to
like
the
800 seats.
My daughter goes to the University. of Miami, so
Maybe we
don't
should
know.
find like a
bigger venue.
bigger venue.
Dude,
Probably
I'll
sell
definitely
30,000, 20,000 tickets, 30,000
yeah.
tickets.
But that's the
do it,
kind of new
man.
media stuff that makes me proud. Like working with guys like
That'd be
yourself.
crazy.
And I love that you and we just had this 2-hour
Timcast
conversation
sells
with
out
your
a
crew.
20,000 seat arena to do a podcast. Conservative podcast so people could talk shit about liberals. Yeah, that would be absolutely nuts. That would be absolutely nuts. Well, this is going to be wrapping up in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. If you guys want to keep going live, just let me know what we should get into next. I do appreciate everybody that stopped in to hang out with me tonight. This is a random stream for me out of the blue. We normally stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 3:30 to 5:30. But we're trying out some other times to see if it works better. So I want to be available to as many people as possible so we can grow the channel. So we're testing out some other stream times to see if we can reach more people. So if you guys like Tuesdays late better than the normal Monday, Wednesday, Friday, let me know. But definitely let me know your feedback on it. So we're trying to build something that everybody can enjoy. So definitely let me know your feedback. All of it will be taken as constructive. I'm not a pussy. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But we are going to get into finishing this up. If you guys want to keep going, check out something else, let me know down in the comments what we should get into. But I appreciate everybody for hanging out with us.
These guys are awesome, by the way. Like, Greg, you got a great team. You guys are really great, man.
Thanks,
so
man.
easy to work with. We disagreed. We agreed on some stuff. And yet we all agree on one thing, like the importance of new media going forward. We have got to give people options, man. We can't have like a monopoly on a cable box anymore.
Isn't it great that you can have your position on abortion? Ian disagrees with you. You talk. We move. We have a conversation.
We're civilized. We're not liberal lunatics. That's why.
I actually care what you have to say too.
Well,
That's maybe part of why I'm able to disagree with people. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I still care.
Yeah. Like I think we all are different positions on the political spectrum.
And no one's like clawing at their face.
Yeah, because we're not cultists.
Pissing their diaper or anything like that.
I was rubbing my head really hard earlier.
Yeah.
It's all right. You
Yeah.
can rub
Yeah.
your head.
Let's grab some more super chats. Try and get as many as we can, I suppose.
Yes.
Norm says rebirth of the Militia Act and fund the local sheriff to be head of the militia. I don't know what the Militia Act is. What is that one?
I don't know what the Militia Act is, but anything, I mean, if your sheriff is elected, it's a good idea to be pro your sheriff and make sure that the guy that gets elected is good. So if there's a guy that's running that's good, like help him out, you know?
Dude, when the abolish the police thing was going viral, I tweeted abolish the police, and then the next I responded with and bring back militias. But the point of this tweet was to exemplify what the left was asking for with quote unquote community policing. That's what militia was.
Do you do your own Twitter, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I just
Like,
tweet
did you ever
nonsense.
just say like some rando pisses you off on Twitter and you like have to go at him for no reason? Do you ever do that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I might tweet at
Like
somebody
once a
sometimes.
week,
I don't
I'll
really
do
read
that.
the responses.
So on Saturday morning, I went and rolled jujitsu and I messed up my knee.
Dude,
It's
you
been
roll?
No, not much. I try to, but I have a bad knee and I'm like a white belt. It
That's
barely
why
counts.
I'm a purple belt, man.
All right.
Yeah,
Oh.
man.
I
That's
like
why
it.
I'm all messed. Look at my elbow.
Yeah.
That's both sides, bro.
Oh my God.
Yeah, here's my shoulder. Look at that.
You had a lot of surgery.
Dude, look at this. They got scars everywhere.
Jesus.
I've got like 20 scars on my chest, muscles. Like I kind of had to cut like tumors out.
All from jujitsu? No, you had
the
cancer
elbow,
too.
the shoulders
Yeah.
from jitsu. My knee don't work. My left knee don't work. And then look, this one was operated on too. This is you see my arms don't straighten.
Yeah,
that's from the gym.
So I was hooked up on the couch all weekend, and the entire time I'm just fighting with commies, going at commies all weekend. Screw the commies.
I got to read this one.
Go
Cain
ahead.
Abel says, Tim, what will happen at this point of no return is Sodom and Gomorrah, or most likely civil war. No one can reason with the left. They've gone insane. Seamus Coughlin said on the show that, I don't want to ruin his quote because it was brutal, but he said something like, if God doesn't smite the United States, he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. And I was like, whoa.
Wow. That's
went for it
deep.
on that one.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like,
Let's
I don't know.
hear
That
that
felt
one
kind of
again.
blasphemous.
Yeah, listen, man, I'm long on the United States, you know?
Whoa!
He went for it on that.
Doesn't smite the United States quote because it was brutal, but he said that I don't want to ruin his quote because it was brutal, but he said something like, if God doesn't smite the United States, he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology.
Wow.
And I was like,
yeah, that's
whoa!
crazy. That's crazy. I had to back that up to hear that again.
He went for it on that one.
Yeah, I know.
I had to back it up to hear that again. That's quite the statement right there. That is quite the statement right there.
And I'm like, I don't know, like I felt kind of blasphemous.
Listen, man, I'm long on the United States, you know?
I am too.
I've been in such worse places before.
People like to point out that like the average empire lasted like 250 years, and they're like, oh, the U.S. has been around 248 or whatever, blah blah blah. And it's like, hold on, the U.S. has been around 248. It has not been an empire the entire time. It has been an empire since the end of World War II.
And, however, if the United States empire collapses, it means the rebirth of the United States. Like, what we would refer to as the U.S. imperialist structure is not America.
Yeah.
It is a corporatist, neo-liberal, neoconservative war machine.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Trump is opposing.
Exactly.
When Trump says bring the borders back, bring the manufacturing back, he's saying make America great again. And you have these corporatist establishment internationalist shills who want war, conflict, military bases. That's not America.
Right.
That was never America.
No.
So I don't care if the American empire falls. Good. We'll get strong borders. We'll get shared community again. We'll bring back jobs.
Facts.
There we go.
We talked about Tool,
That's
right?
Facts.
One great big festering neon distraction.
Man.
You know what?
Keep you all occupied.
Learn to
Learn to swim.
You know what song really speaks to me is The Sound of Silence. It may not be about today.
Simon and Garfunkel?
Yeah. It may not be about today, but like those lyrics resonate still. When it's like they bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, I'm like, it's Twitter. It's like you could say that song is about Twitter. You know, people speaking without listening, people, or whatever. I'm like, it really does feel like whatever it is they were looking at, because I think they were talking about the free speech movement or something like that. But I'm like,
but that's when liberals were actual liberals.
Right.
Now they're just straight. They're everything they accused the right of being back in the 60s.
The word's been
right?
twisted.
Oh,
yeah, that
man.
definition of the word liberals being abused right now.
It's Rush Limbaugh's fault because Rush Limbaugh in the 90s made the term liberal toxic. He beat the crap out of the left. And at the time it probably wasn't, it didn't matter. But now the word, which has a function and is actually valuable, has been totally annihilated.
Dude, that's the thing is like it's not the liberals. It's the leftists themselves say liberals are the first to go. We're the ones who are the problem.
Yep.
So it's not us.
All weekend I've been sharing. I have pictures of this graffiti that says "Liberals get the bullet too," or there's "Scratch a liberal."
Exactly.
The scratch a.
Johnson, why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson. He's wearing a true classic tee.
A liberal, a fascist bleeds. The far left.
Yeah, I make a habit of always trying to say leftist, not liberal. Because, it does mean something.
Believes that liberals are fascist. They see no light between liberals and fascists.
Well, to clarify,
far left.
The far left thinks liberals are liberals, but are the front line of fascists.
Yes.
Like, they defend the fascists every time.
Yeah.
I got to read one last super chat from Star Wars fan. Tim, I've watched for a long while, but never donated before. But now my best friend, my dog Misty, has been diagnosed with cancer. Odds aren't good. I've had it for 13 years. I figured you'd sympathize after Mr. Bokus. Give my best girl a shout out, please. Shout out to Misty. You're a very good dog. I'm sorry to hear it, man. It's always sad. But as I often say, when it comes to your dog being sick and passing on, or any pet, that I just view that emotion you get, that welling up, is your payment for all of the good that your pet gave you. You are now expressing and giving back, like it all built up and was released. And everybody knows this is true, that you would never trade the time you spent with your dog, your best friend, if it meant relieving that pain you're feeling when they pass. The pain you feel when they pass is worth every moment to know all of the joy and happiness they brought you. So I'm sorry to hear that. It's sad. I wish you the best. And for everybody else, thanks so much for hanging out. Smash the like button, subscribe to the show, share the show with your friends. We're going to have this pre-recorded, uncensored.
We're going to cut it off there, folks. We're going to cut it off there. I appreciate everybody that showed up to the live. I appreciate you. We were testing out a new time, and it seems to be a better time. We pulled in more viewers. I don't know if that's because of the subject at hand, or because of the actual time. So we're going to continue to test it out. I didn't get much feedback from you guys tonight. Everybody was scared of the chat for some reason. So don't be scared of the chat, people. I need some feedback. We're trying to grow and make a good channel and good content for you guys. And I need to have feedback in order to make the content you guys want to see. So I appreciate everybody stopping by. Links are down in the description. If you want to help support the channel, you can shop McClures.com. That's a website that I created that sells quality American products. You know, women's stuff, makeup stuff, men's stuff, boots, backpacks, holsters, collectible stuff, pet stuff. So it's not like a merch store. It's shopmcclures.com. And we sell quality American products over there. You can go check it out, see if there's anything you can find that you need or find a gift for somebody else. But every purchase helps the channel keep going, because we're trying to make this a full-time gig, and we need your support to do it. I'm not ashamed to ask for it. So hit me up on socials. Those links are in the descriptions as well. Let me know your guys' recommendations. And of course, we do stream regularly. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 3:30 to 5:30 is the regular time for now. We are looking into possibly changing that with your guys' help if we need to, or maybe just adding some days. But let me know what you guys think. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. And we'll see you later. Later, bye.